All right. Welcome, everyone, to the November 1st meeting of the Gas and Light Commissioners. And this meeting is being recorded. Let's see. So I'm the chair, Jack Washall. I only had two brief things to say. I talked to Pete earlier, and the calendar is at the printer and will be ready to be distributed shortly after after Thanksgiving. And we were also going to include on the agenda today a look at these slides for the community solar. We discussed that last month, and that's not on the agenda because we just got too much going on. So we'll see whether or not we're going to fit that on meeting for next January, because the January meeting is going to be we'll probably be able to fit it in December.
We'll talk about it in December before the January meeting. Yeah.
Yes, because the January is looking like it's going to be
Strategic
planning meeting, because there's really nothing else yet for that meeting other than just business as usual. Are there any commissioners' reports?
Just one, on November 6th at WCAT and on Zoom, the ESC is going to be doing an info forum around Article 7, the optimized energy code. So there'll be some experts there and members of the ESC to answer questions that any member of the public may have. So it is in person and Zoom, and the information's out on the ESC webpage.
Right, yeah, I saw that on Facebook. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? All right, town council liaison is not present. I see no one from the public. If I'm mistaken, anyone can speak up. Very well, so let's move on to the secretary's report, the approval of the October 4th minutes.
So just noticed that Elton's name is not listed as the commissioner on the front page.
You got kicked to the side, actually. To the left.
It's under the address.
Oh, there it is.
We'll edit that.
Oh,
I just didn't.
I didn't even know.
So many edits, we'll fix it.
I just,
Were there any additional edits that came in after the version that we have in front of us? Okay. Well, if no one has any additional changes to bring up right now, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the October 4th, 2023 minutes.
Second. Very well. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to the presentation from Zachary.
Perfect. So my name is Zach Ventros. I was the audit director in charge of the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department's June 30th, 2023 audit. You heard Jack say Markham. So last year we were Melanson, and our firm was acquired on January 1st of 2023. So to kind of give you a perspective, Melanson was a company of about 120 employees. And Markham is a company of about 4,500 employees. So Markham is one of the 15 largest CPA firms in the country. Very well respected, and we're ecstatic about joining them and seeing what they have to offer and providing some insights ourselves. So I'm going to go through the financial statements, highlight certain account balances and trends. At any time anybody has any questions, please feel free to stop me and I can go through them at that time. Before we jump into the financial statements, I want to just let everyone know that there are a few items in here that are highlighted in yellow. And those items that are highlighted in yellow, there's also some pages that are highlighted in yellow, and those are in relation to the net pension liability. Currently, the Wakefield Contributory Retirement System financial statements aren't available, and we need those financial statements available to be able to enter in that information. So this is something that's been done historically with the light department, gas and light department here, that when that information becomes available, and it usually becomes available sometime in January, we'll take that information, put them into the financial statements, and then they'll finalize. So what you see in front of you is just a draft, and they won't be finalized until sometime after the calendar year.
And typically what we do is we'll ask for a vote tonight pending the fact that the numbers that end up being in there at the final are not extremely different than what we would normally.
Carry, I think last year's balances just as a carry forward, is that we do?
We do. So the number that's presented in there in the 2023 column and the numbers in the footnotes are
last year's information for the net pension liability. And again, that will all be updated when that information is made available to us, and we expect sometime in January, maybe February.
And then we'll present you with the finalized version of it as part of your board book.
It's fine.
Once it's final.
Yep. But the numbers that aren't highlighted in yellow, they're not going to change. They're all staying the same. So you'll see that on the balance sheet and income statement. There's just a few line items that are highlighted, and there's just one big note disclosure that's highlighted. So before I jump in, I think it's important to kind of have a takeaway from my presentation here tonight. And I think that takeaway should be that the department has a very tight cash position. We'll get into that one in a bit. The department also has positive operating results, has a very well-funded OPEB trust fund, and there's no management letter. And what I mean by no management letter, so in addition to proving out the numbers and the figures in your financial statements, we also look at the internal controls of the gas and light department to make sure that your assets are being appropriately safeguarded. And if we had any recommendations to improve those internal controls, we would issue a formal management letter to formally document that recommendation. And as a result, there is no management letter this year, which really speaks to both Mark, Pete, and their team at large and how seriously they take the internal controls here and make sure that they're operating effectively. Now, of the governmental clients that Markham works with in New England, only about 10% don't get a management letter. So the fact that the municipal gas and light department doesn't have a management letter puts you in really high esteem, with others that in your community that receive audits.
It's been a number of years now since we haven't had that management letter, correct?
That is correct. I honestly, I didn't look before I came, but I can't remember the last time we had a management letter. Probably maybe first years or predates Mark, I would say, but since then, 6 years,
13.
13 years, we haven't had one. Okay. So definitely predates Mark then.
Yeah. After that first year was a nightmare. The second year we had, I was telling Zach, we had I think 3 pages of stuff because we were making improvements. The third year we had a clean audit, and we've had clean audits ever since.
Let me ask one more question, brief. So when you look at the internal controls, how do you determine that the internal controls
Are operating effectively?
Yeah.
We do testing of them. So if, for example, when we're looking at payroll, we'll make sure that all timesheets are appropriately signed off by supervisors and that, the controls that are in place to make sure that time is being appropriate or is being entered appropriately. We'll go through 25 different transactions and make sure that the supervisors are signing off appropriately on those timesheets. We'll make sure that you as your Board of Commissioners are signing off on the warrants. That's an internal control that we look at. So we look at things like that. We also do a day of cash out testing where we select one day and we look at all the receipts that were collected by the department, make sure that they have the proper authorization, went through the system the proper way and entered into the general ledger correctly. So we do, when we are told about an internal control, we will test that internal control to make sure that what we're being told is correct. And we didn't have any exceptions on any of our testing of internal controls.
All right, that's helpful to me because the chair of the commission is asked each year to give a statement, to the effect that our controls, are in place. And so I wanted to know that you weren't only relying on the statement that I just gave you. Oh, yeah, we're good.
It wouldn't make me a very good auditor if I just relied on that. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's jump right in. We'll go to the first page after the table of contents. The first page after the table of contents is the independent auditor's report. This is essentially what the department hired us to produce. The department received a clean opinion, which means there are no exceptions. And this is the best opinion you can receive from an independent auditor. And it's the same opinion that the department has received in prior years. We're gonna have you turn to page 4. It's the first page of the management's discussion and analysis. And the management's discussion and analysis takes place on pages 4 through 7. Essentially, this is just a narrative summary of the results of operation and discusses some major financial areas. So instead of just simply sitting here and reading this to you, I want to jump right to page 8, which is the first page of the statement of net position. And we'll discuss the same things, page 8 and some of those further pages that are discussed here in the management's discussion and analysis. So the statement of net position, which is essentially your balance sheet, it's on pages 8 and 9. Page 8 shows just the assets. Page 9 will show the liabilities, and we'll just kind of go down it systematically. I think what's important to note that is the information that's presented on page 8, 9, and 10 is a consolidation of both the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department as well as the Wakefield Municipal Cooperative Corporation. If you'd like to see a breakout for what makes up the cooperative corporation versus what makes up the department, that can be found on pages 54 through 59. Don't want to jump there now, but just want to make you aware of that. That if you're looking for a breakout between the two, that can be found again on pages 54 through 59. The first item I want to bring to your attention is maybe about 2/3 of the way down the page. It's under non-current assets and it is under capital assets and it's land and construction in progress. And that at a balance of $1,101,000. It's actually about an $802,000 decrease from the prior year. Now, this decrease is primarily due to an item that was sitting in construction in progress in fiscal year 22 that was completed in fiscal year 23. And that was the circuit conversion at the Gold Street area. So that was sitting in your construction in progress in 22. That project was completed in 23. So it actually just dropped one line item down. So if you actually look one line item down, it's other capital assets net of accumulated depreciation. And that has a balance of $49,767,000. It's actually largely unchanged from the 2022 figure. It's actually about a $52,000 increase. Now, it's largely unchanged because your current year additions were primarily offset by your current year depreciation expense, and both were about 5.1 million. So you had additions to your capital for about 5.1 million, and your depreciation expense for the current year was about 5.1 million as well. So some of the major capital items that took place in fiscal year 23 on the electric side was 360,000 was spent on line transformers, and then 250,000 was spent on transportation equipment. And on the gas side of the equation, 1.2 million was spent on gas mains, and 557,000 was spent on meter installations. And those are some of the major capital additions to the infrastructure here that was done for 2023. The next item I want to bring to your attention, we're going to do a little bit of flipping between pages 8 and 9 on this one because it's a new presentation for the department. If you look right above land and construction in progress on page 8, you're going to see net OPEB asset. And that's a new line item for you this year. And I'll explain that a bit further. And that has a balance of 162,000. So OPEB actually stands for other post-employment benefits. This is essentially the health insurance for the department. And if we look at page 9, I'm going to talk about this in relation with each other. Maybe about halfway down the page on page 9, under the non-current liabilities, you're going to see net OPEB liability. And that does not have a balance in 2023, but does have a balance in 2022 of about $93,534. And that's because your liability, you had a liability in 2022, and then you fully funded that liability and it turned into an asset in 2023. So the decrease in the liability is primarily due to contributions that were made to the tune of about 360,000 to that other post-employment benefits trust fund, as well as 437,000 in positive investment earnings that fund had in 2023. Now that was softened by a change in assumption that was reflective of the increase in the premiums for your health insurance. And I think if we turn to page 53 is a really good illustrative example of this liability, as well as the related assets that the department has set aside. So page 53 is some required supplementary information. And I want to focus just on that little top schedule. There's 3 schedules here. And that first one is the schedule of the net OPEB liability. And if you look over, there's, you have your columns for 23, 22, 21. I want to focus just on that 2023 column. That very first line item is your total OPEB liability. So your total OPEB liability was determined by an actuary that was hired by the department. And that actuary determined that the liability was $8,041,000. That next line item is your planned fiduciary net position. These are funds that have been set aside and segregated by the department that can only be spent on your future health insurance. And the department has set aside $8.2 million, which is why you have that net OPEB asset of $162,000. So you can see that the funding percentage is 102%. Now, this is a very strong position for the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department. When you look at cities and towns in the Commonwealth, they're usually between 0 to 10% funded. And when you look at other light departments, your contemporaries, what I generally see is between 25 and 40%. So to have that at 102% funded, it puts you in a much better financial position than even some of your contemporaries in the Commonwealth. Again, that's going to be viewed very favorably by your users of the financial statements. In speaking with Mark, he asked me to maybe talk a little bit about how to handle the funding of this into the future, because you have been putting in about $360,000 on an annual basis into this fund pretty consistently. So the question was asked, do we stop funding it? What do we do at this point now that we're fully funded and we have an OPEB asset? And unfortunately, I can't give you a definitive answer for a couple of reasons. One, that's not my area of expertise. You actually have an actuary and you have a really good actuary with Siegel. His name is Danny Rhodes. If you were to reach out to him, he'd be able to provide you with a lot of insight on the funding of this and whether you should still be, putting some money in there or you can stop putting money in there. I'll defer to your actuary on that regard. Additionally, I need to make sure that I'm maintaining my independence. And if I'm telling you how to make a management decision, in my opinion, I'm I've got skin in the game now and my independence is impaired, and that's something I take very seriously. So I don't want to give you an answer on how to make a management decision moving forward. So just wanted to bring that one to your attention, that I think it is in your best interest to have that conversation with your actuary and to get their insight, because they are the expert in this, and they'll be able to provide you with good analysis and insight on what to do moving forward.
One of the things we are gonna recommend that we still do some level of funding. We're gonna reduce the funding level this year, but we're still, one of the important things to note on this is the liability went from 7.5 million to 8 million in 1 year. So even though we have an asset of 162,000 right now, that can very much change in any given year. It can go up, it can go down. It tends to be a little bit volatile, but it definitely always goes up. So
Market driven as well.
yeah, and as the returns of investments in the market go up and down, so we are still going to contribute at a lower level going forward, but we still think we should have an excess liability there, so that in a given year we're not in a liability state again.
We'll have a discussion with the actuary.
Okay, when do we get the number, the liability number from the actuary, and when does that get plugged into the
August.
budgeting?
August this year, that's when as soon as I get it, I think it was August.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So just wondering,
They do it in-
right, obviously. Market forces
Yep.
there.
Yep.
But
And it's as of June 30, but we get it sometime in.
So we'll want to build a little cushion
Yeah.
for.
Okay. And I'm assuming the target is 100% or more.
We don't want to have 5 million in
Yeah.
excess, but we want a little excess so that we don't carry a liability.
So we're looking like 100 to like 105, 110%.
Yeah, we're gonna have,
What's the actuary?
we're gonna have that discussion with the
Okay,
actuary and, maybe we can dial that in a little bit.
Well, I mean, yeah, I have no idea if 100% is actually the goal. I guess that's the question, because we've never been, we've been anywhere from 50 to 100% in the past.
Right, we started funding this 8 years ago, maybe, was it? 8 to 10 years ago? When we started funding OPEB,
Before that.
it became a requirement to fund OPEB because healthcare costs were climbing, and it's really it's post-retirement healthcare. So it's anybody that retires from here, we still owe them to pay for the healthcare. It's a liability. We were paying out of day-to-day operating, but there was an accounting change 10 years ago or more that said it's a liability that you should be funding. They set up a table that allowed towns to 20 or 30 years to fund it. So a long time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was along the same lines as pension, Pete, because I know that pensions are required to be funded by 2035. I believe.
Right.
I don't know if
OPEB was
was OPEB similar?
OPEB was
Okay.
similar. So we started to fund it. And so between investment gains and the level we've been funding it, we've built that up. And so we will still have a similar thing on the pension side, but the OPEB side of it at least is funded. The idea is that once that cash is there, at some point, once we feel we're maybe at 105% or whatever the recommended number is, then you can actually pay for retiree benefits directly out of that.
That's correct.
And the requirement is what again? By what year?
We're ahead.
We
by-
beat it, whatever it
Yeah,
was.
Right,
beat
but
it.
do we know what it is, I
It's like
guess?
10 years. I think we still have at least 10 years.
I'm not sure about that one,
Yeah.
Pete. I didn't know that there was one because I see some people are not going to be fully funded until 2050 something or
Yeah.
2060 something. So I can look into that and give you
There
guys an
used to be a
answer.
date, there was a date. I don't know if that date changed, but originally when we started to fund this. And when the state require this, we were allowed as a light department to do it separately from the town for the light department, so that we immediately started to do that, and we use Prim, is it?
Yep.
Our investment,
The
yeah,
state,
which was
yep.
the state's,
State plan.
the state vehicle that money goes right to a state controlled fund, but it's in the light department's name, it's not in the town of Wakefield's name.
And what happens if you don't meet the deadline?
Then it becomes an expense.
Okay,
You'll have to pay for it on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
But you carry the point is that you carry the whole liability, even though you fund it annually, the actuary says, here's the whole liability. So we were able to not carry that liability in our books because we were funding it, so the liability we were carrying reduced, that $8 million liability. If you were a town that didn't have that fund, you're carrying an $8 million liability, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are some communities, well, towns, they go through the moon, they can be up to $150 to $200 million, depending on the size of the community. And they're very, very large liabilities on their books. Because again, most of them are between 0 to 10% funded. Okay, let's jump back to page 9. So I'm gonna jump back to page 8 a little bit later, but we're gonna take a bit of a break and we're gonna go to page 9, which is the liability side of your balance sheet. And the first one on mine, I want to bring to your attention is maybe about halfway down the page. It's the first item under non-current liabilities. It's loans payable net of current portion. And that had a balance of $10,828,000. It's actually about a $2.1 million decrease from the prior year. Now, that decrease is primarily due to the principal payments that the department made. It's not primarily, it is due to the principal payments that the department made on their outstanding debt in fiscal year 23. But the reason I wanted to bring this to your attention is a good financial indicator is when a community pays off between 75 or around 75% of their debt within 10 years. And 10 years from now, the department will pay off 99.7% of their debt. You have a small $40,000 principal payment in that 11th year. So being at 99.7% of your debt paid off within the next 10 years is a good financial indicator that's going to be viewed favorably by your users of the financial statements. And again, you can see just those yellow highlights are a bit more prominent here when you see that net pension liability. It's right below, so you can see the balance for 23 is the same as it was in 22. So we just reflected the 22 balance in the 23 as kind of like a placeholder until we get that information. If I could have you turn the page to page 10. Page 10 is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in that position. It's basically your income statement. And I would like to focus on the first two items, or the only two items under operating revenues, and the first two items under operating expenses. So your electric sales net of discounts was $33,285,000. It's that very first number. It's actually about a $5.9 million increase from the prior year. Similarly, gas sales net of discounts had a balance of $13,456,000. That's about a $2.3 million increase from the prior year. Now, those increases are directly related to the increase in the cost of purchased electricity and the cost of purchased gas. So if you look under your operating expenses for those very first two line items, your cost of purchased electricity increased by about 3.8 million, and your cost of purchased natural gas increased by about 4.2 million. Now, this was the cost of purchased electricity and the cost of purchased natural gas increase due to both the supply and price volatility in the global energy market. And as a result, those increased costs were passed along to the customers of the municipal gas and light department, which is why you see that increase in the revenue. So those increases in the revenues and the increases in expenses are directly correlated with one another. And that was everything I want to bring to your attention, on page 10. Those are the big swings. If I could have you turn the page to page 11, which is the statement of cash flows. And this is something that I haven't really focused on in the past, but I think it provides some really good information. And I want to bring one item to your attention on page 11. A good financial indicator is when your net cash provided by your operating activities covers your principal and interest payments on your related debt. And you guys have that here. So if we look at that 2023 column, 3 numbers from the top, you'll see net cash provided by operating activities of $7,334,000. So essentially what this is a bit more complex than I'm making it, but your receipts from customers and users, less your payments to your vendors and your employees provides you with your net cash provided by operating activities. And again, that's about 7.3 million. If you go maybe about 2/3 of the way down the page, there's a new category called cash flows from capital and related financing activities. And in there, the second number down, you'll see principal payments on your loans of 1,964,000. And two items below that, you'll see your interest expense of 414,000. So good financial indicators when you have your net cash provided by operating activities covering your principal and interest payments on your corresponding debt. So again, net cash provided by operating activities is 7.3 million. And then your principal payments on your loans as well as your interest expenses, about $2.4 million, give or take. So you do have your net cash provided by your operating activities covering those principal and interest payments. What's also important to note is, obviously 7.3 less than 2.4, that's probably around $5 million. The largest chunk of that $5 million, if you look back under that cash flows from capital and related financing activities, that very first line item, acquisition and construction of capital assets. That's the big chunk of where you're spending your cash, is to maintain the infrastructure here of the department. For both your gas and your electric. So you can see that $4.4 million was spent out of your essentially operating activities to help fund those capital improvements that the department needed to make in fiscal year 23.
So can you repeat for me one more time? So the indicator that you're talking about is if the 7.3 covers the principal payments on loans, the 1.9, and the other item?
Right below that, your interest expense. So that's the interest on your
Oh,
outstanding debt.
414?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And the point I was making at the end there, Jack, was, if you take that, just the operating activities less the principal and interest, you're left with about $5 million. And that $5 million is primarily spent on the acquisition and construction of your capital assets. So you're, reinvesting it back into the infrastructure of the department.
Can you just go through, sorry, you said it earlier, the 4.3 million is, you said gas mains, 1.2 million, meters, 0.5 million. I missed the electric side.
Sure.
Really sorry.
I'm just giving like the major ones. It's
No, it's fine.
Marcus provides you with a bit more detail. On the electric side, 360,000 was on line transformers. And 250,000 was on transportation equipment. And then on the gas side, 1.2 million for gas mains. And 557,000 on meter installations. I described some of the bigger ones to highlight. There are other that obviously have additions, but they weren't as large as those ones.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. If we could jump back to page 8, will be the last thing I want to talk about tonight, which is your cash position. So as part of the audit procedures, we want to look at liquidity of the department. And what we do is we do a fairly basic quick ratio. So we essentially take the first 3 numbers on page 8, which is your unrestricted cash, your receivables, and your prepaid expenses. And then we subtract out any accounts payable on page 9. And what we do is we compare that to the average monthly expenditures from page 10. So on page 10, I'm going to bebop around just a little bit here. Maybe about halfway down the page, you'll see total operating expenditures of 45,304,000. So we take that less depreciation. And we compare that in what the industry average is, and what we would recommend is having that ratio be 3. So you have 3 months of assets on hand to cover 3 months of expenditures. And as of June 30, 2023, that ratio is at 0.7. So you have less than a month of assets essentially on hand to cover less than 1 month of your expenditures, which is a very tight cash position. It's no different than it's been in the past. Last year you had about 1.5 months of assets on hand. So it is, at 0.7 or less than a month is pretty comparable to some prior years. The department has historically had a fairly tight cash position. So it's nothing new this year, but just again, I always want to emphasize that to bring that to your attention, that you're aware of that position that the department is in.
Primarily related to the commodity costs over the winter and all that. That was really the driver behind that. We started to dig out of that. So kept the rate stable, and we're starting to come out of that.
Right, we've held the rate basically constant for electric and we lowered gas for the summer, but as you know, the gas costs are coming down a little bit, but we still have to recover. As we said last month, we were behind on gas at the beginning, so we have to recover that amount we were behind last year before we can lower the gas rates further.
The ratio is something you guys calculate too, Mark, or no?
We look at it month to month to month. Yeah.
I was thinking if we can get like an update, given that this is since June with
Right.
gas consumptions going up for the winter months,
Right.
Right.
we can get an update like in the January timeframe to
Yep.
see.
Yeah, we can run that. We can run that.
The cash position is getting better.
Yeah,
But-
yeah,
I know-
that's the short answer.
This is something that we've talked about since I've been on the board, that, been trying to work towards that 3 and, some years, obviously, we make some gains and
Last year, we didn't make any gains.
yeah, we slipped a bit. I mean, do we have more of a concrete, I know a lot of it's tied to the commodity to kind of get us to the 3, whether it's a multi-year plan.
Well, it's the big, to your point, Tom, it is the biggest line item on both the revenue side and the expense side on, on the financial statements. So, again, we look at it and it's, the reason, I guess it's a two-sided equation. It's what do you want to do with the rates, right? And, and the commodity cost. So it's, in Pete Dion speak, it's the gazintas and the gazatas, right? So that's.
We have that conversation every morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the reality is we try to balance the recovering of that asset with our position in the rates, and we didn't want, we probably
We have
should
to
have
take the
charged more.
temperature, we
Yeah,
have to take the temperature of our customers too, and we
Yeah.
kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah.
We don't need people in here with pitchforks and, you don't want to see that any more than we do,
so,
right? So it's a
balance.
balancing act. It really is.
And maybe just provide some insight. You're not alone in this. Due to the increase in the energy cost, other light departments or contemporaries also drew down on their cash reserves. So most have that ratio that I'm talking about, even if they were at 3 or 4 months due to the increase and they drew down on some of their, rainy day funds, if you will, or rate stabilization funds. So that they're more in line probably with you guys as having some pretty tight cash positions right now.
Is there a list of levers we can pull? Like, do you provide?
It's,
No, so one of the first things we do is, so like we had, and again, Mark Roberts was in, last month and, we had a discussion with him because that was one of the biggest drivers was the cost of gas. And we said, you have to work with us on this. And he carried, Sprague carried us, as far as, paying,
starting in January,
Deferring-
yeah, they
deferring
levelize
some of-
our costs for the
Yeah,
rest of the year.
yeah, and then, we build it and then we build it, we build our customers, we collected it from our customers, and then we paid it all back to Sprague before, the June 30 close. So that was one of the things. And MWIC has expressed the willingness to work with us as well in those respects as well. So
Those are the tools we use to try to
it's-
manage through those crises situations, like, it's happened maybe 3 times in the past 10 years where we've had a really bad commodity winter. It's mostly driven by gas, mostly driven by either a polar vortex or a war in Ukraine. Like, there's big ticket items that drive that, and so, Mark's presentation last month said we're hoping we're in much better shape this winter, which should help us recover and get a little bit ahead. It's all in that. It all comes and goes from, the rates and the commodity rates. So whether we tried not to jack up the commodity rate too early last year, hoping it would get better. When it didn't, we had to jack it up. And then at the same time, we levelized with Sprague and with MWEC so that they helped us get through the rest of the year. So.
Any questions? That was pretty much it that I wanted to bring to your attention here tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Very informative.
So typically we take a vote to accept the audit and contingent on once the final numbers are available and we share them with you, that they're not dramatically different from what we expect.
Hold on just a second. Oh, is this item listed in the? Here's somewhere.
It is item D, presentation.
Okay. Oh, here it is. Page 17. All right, yeah, I forgot that. So this, all right, so we're gonna take a vote on it very well. Yeah, so is there a motion to accept this preliminary report pending additional items that will be needed from town hall?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept the preliminary report pending updates in January.
Second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're okay, just a quick statement from me. I just want to say thank you to both Mark, Pete, and their entire teams. They're very well prepared for us when we come in. It allows the audit to go much more smoothly. So this is the first June 30 year end that I'm doing a presentation for. So if not for the retirement system not being done, this will be the first one finalized as well. So just want to thank the Mark and Pete for all their hard work in this process. It's not easy. So just want to thank them real quick.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Mark's Super Bowl day.
You made that statement a couple of years in a row, so good job, Mark. Thanks.
And now he's got Joe on board. Joe's learning to do more and more of the help on this.
Yeah. I give him the handoff.
Yeah.
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 Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thanks again, Zach. Okay, so moving right along on to old business. Updates?
Are there any questions on any of the updates? The only thing on the energy park, Dave's had some conversations with the State House, and we are hopeful that it'll kick out of the Senate side by Thanksgiving, is what we're told. So hopefully, we get to start making some forward progress. In the meantime, the rest of the stuff is in the purchasing, planning, engineering, all the phases we can be in to keep it moving as much as we can prior to pulling a trigger and actually buying something. So
Do we know, once it gets, comes out of the Senate, do we have
it's gonna be
any?
signed by the governor.
Governor, do we have any indication how long that lead time is for her to sign it?
We don't.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't be too long. And we've been using the levers we can at the State House as much as possible, so. And then the only other note on operational stuff, I don't know, if you drive by the building, you're gonna see a lot of stuff going on. You see,
The notice that today.
that's the solar project on the roof. So, it should be done and in testing by January, assuming we don't get big blizzards and snowstorms in this. So weather dependent, we're hoping to have it all up and running by the end of the, beginning of January. So the team that's here, they've been here since Monday, Friday, we're actually putting a note out on Facebook and a few places. Friday's not gonna be a good day to come here. We are gonna be open for customers and we'll have somebody helping them in. But we try to put a message out today that you can do your business Wednesday or Thursday, just because Friday is gonna be a lot going on here. We will have, like I said, people we're only gonna have 3 spaces down the far end on Friday to let people come in if they really absolutely have to. If not, they can deal with us over the phone, but all the panels are being lifted on the roof from both sides on Friday, so. We picked Friday because it's our short day, so.
I'm assuming we're kind of documenting, like someone taking photos, pictures to kind of memorialize that and document it.
Ian's taking
Okay.
pictures in a drone,
Cool.
so
Oh,
we'll
sweet.
take them along the way, yep.
Nice.
So, and then there's a lift, so this is a lift, so we'll take some pictures too, but we're definitely going to be taking a drone shot, a couple of them.
Yeah, we'll get the cranes on Friday.
Maybe when.
Yep,
it's all
exactly, take
done,
a picture
do it.
across the lake and we'll get that, that'll be a still, and then we'll do some others.
Yeah, so we'll have a little bit of a crazy day here on Friday with a lot going on, but the team that's here, the contractors are excellent. So they've done a great job. We asked them to move their laydown area because we thought it'd be better to a different spot and they quickly accommodated and they're doing great. Didn't have anything else. Unless there's any questions.
Okay. Anyone have any questions about the project? Very well.
Oh, I see that, sorry, can I ask one quick one? I see that Burns site remediation is going on.
We completed, the switchgear has been removed and we probably won't be in the process, the paperwork process for the cleaning up of the dirt is ongoing. We probably won't be getting that till the spring now because we're running out of window. But we got the switchgear off the site now, so it's a clean, it's a blank site. We do have some site cleanup to do. And our environmental contractor is doing all the paperwork and we'll probably start doing that beginning of the spring.
Okay.
And then I'm assuming everything goes well with the Energy Park land transfer, then we'll turn that into the park. When do we expect kind of timeline for that to be
It'll
open?
probably over the course, it depends on how long the site cleanup takes. But we've talked to the contractor about starting the process next year, but it would probably run into the following.
Okay, the expectation.
So if we get it all cleaned up and then we could probably start some preliminary work next fall and then real making it into a park would probably be that following spring.
And what conversations are we having with the town about what they want to actually see in the park?
We're not having any conversations with them yet on that until this is done.
Okay.
So once that's done, we can start to, we've provided a drawing of what we're recommending, but we're not gonna really get into detail on that unless the land stuff happens. We don't want to create the expectation that we're making the park anyway. If the energy park for some reason didn't go through, then that's a site we may put a battery, that type of thing. So we don't want to create the impression that the park's going no matter what. So.
Makes sense, okay.
So that's located right next to the energy park?
No,
Burn
it's
station?
Burn Station. It was on Ballister Street,
Oh.
right off of Albion.
Oh,
It was a 4 kV substation that we de-energized last year.
okay.
And one of the things for the energy park that we're offering is that we would convert that land into a passive park.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, if you're going down Albion, you go past St. Joe's and you go past 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Just after 7-Eleven, there are some condos on the left.
Huh?
It's in that parking lot.
Oh, okay.
It's right there.
yeah, it would have been easier to see a couple weeks ago because we still had switchgear there, but now it's just a blank lot. So,
Okay.
but there's a big concrete pad, so.
And we're still thinking about putting a community garden in there.
Who is?
Ken wants to grow some.
No,
vegetables in the parking.
You're not gonna grow that land. I don't recommend it.
You mean,
No, but I was talking,
I wouldn't put food on an environmentally remediated site.
no, but when I mentioned that, I was talking about raised beds, not in the parking lot. But. Okay, so moving on. So that brings us to Jeff. And the IT update.
Indeed. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. Let me share my screen here.
Hey,
Make it big. And share.
Dave, is he allowed to share?
Oh, you should be.
Yeah, I hadn't hit it yet. I was
Oh,
getting my. There we go. Let's make it big. Make it big. There we go. Let me get all the Zoom stuff out of the way. Good. Again, I'm Jeff Morris. I'm the IT manager at WMGLD, and I'm going to present the IT update for 2023. My slide will not advance. Why?
but Jeff usually presents in December, but he's going away on vacation, so we let him present in November this year.
Not sure why it won't advance, but if you're okay with seeing it this way, then we'll be able to keep going.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right, good, thank you.
Mhm.
So in the IT world, you really never know when a project is gonna kind of fall from the sky into your lap. Seems to happen every year. And Itron, the company that supports our remote meter reading system, decided that they needed to move their data center from a place called Liberty Lake, Washington to Las Vegas, Nevada. And that was supposed to give them a more secure facility to host their side. It's a pretty big deal because it required us to reconfigure all of our fixed network, the entire fixed network, in order to connect our repeaters and our collectors to their new data center. The repeaters and collectors are just, not sure if everyone knows what those are, but the repeaters and collectors are the devices out in the field that we use to gather meter reading information from every location in our service territory. So again, it was an unplanned project, but it was good to do and get it behind us. And that is that. I remember last year I talked about that we were going to need to migrate our WMGLD.com website to a new host. And basically we just needed more control over what was running or accessible on our site. And the old host, we definitely saw some vulnerabilities and weaknesses with the old host, and we felt that we needed to eradicate those weaknesses. So it was clear that it was time to migrate the site to a new host to keep the bad actors from benefiting from those weaknesses. As someone I'm close to once said, when the people lay dormant is when they prosper the most. And I thought that concept, he was talking about something else, but that concept easily applies to IT versus the bad actors. IT cannot remain dormant. You gotta keep improving and increasing security. So moving to the new host also provides us with greater stability and greater control over the entirety of the site, what's running in the background, SSL certificates, all the stuff that I needed access to and I didn't on the old site, old host. This is the big one. Major project with Cogsdale, which is our system. Part of platforms and to migrate to new servers. This took longer than expected because certain programming languages, specifically VBA code, that easily ran on old servers, operating systems, no longer ran on the newer Windows server operating systems and became very problematic on those new versions. So this resulted in Cogsdale needing to rewrite quite a bit of their code and reporting tools, which all needed to be tested again. This was essentially an upgrade to almost every aspect of our company because of how many things are impacted by such an upgrade and migration. Things like our outage management system, our requisition approval and purchase order system, Itron's meter reading program, our call center, and so many other tools that we use and rely on touch or have hooks in our billing and financial systems. That said, it was a big project, but we'll take this as a win because even with all the moving parts and all the vendors involved in this project, when we went live a week or so ago, there were only a few issues that cropped up. And within 2 or 3 days, they cropped up within 2 or 3 days, and they were resolved within 2 or 3 days. With the exception of one issue that cropped up after I made these slides. So that's one lingering issue, and we're dealing with that even as we speak. So definitely taking that one as a win. On a side note regarding Cogsdale, this was pretty cool to me. It was clear that because of COVID, they lost touch with the needs of their customers, us and other utilities who use their software. And so with strong encouragement from us at WMGLD, they sparked up their regional users groups again this year. So that was in that basically that's a great opportunity to share ideas and concerns with some of the decision makers at Cogsdale. It also gives us an opportunity to network, a natural way to network with some of the other users of their software, so we can talk, share experiences, and help Cogsdale make the product better. And we were fortunate enough to be able to host their first New England users group this past September. And we had, honestly, we had a full house upstairs in the training room. It was pretty exciting. So the new customer portal testing is still underway. Things with the vendor hadn't been going as smoothly as we wanted. We had to have a bit of a hard talk with them to get things going in the right direction. They removed some of their less experienced resources from the project and replaced them with stronger, more skilled resources. As a result, things started going in a much better direction, and more stable features were being implemented. Because of that, we were more eager to pull in more testers. So we put on Facebook and we put on our website, and I was at the farmers market a month or so ago to try to draw some new testers in. And we gained quite a few, a lot actually. I was pretty excited about that. But we gained them by offering a $25 credit to all the customers who signed up to test the portal. There were some requirements they had to meet, but no one seemed to have a problem with it. They were eager to jump in. So things are moving at a much faster pace now. And now that the big billing system and financial system upgrade is behind us, we can push this one down the road a lot faster.
How was the general, I'm sorry, the general feedback from the ratepayers?
We've gotten some really sharp people testing it. I'm really happy they signed up. They were able to see some things, some calculations that weren't exact. It's been great. I mean, functionality, it's been pretty good, but there were definitely some tweaks, some features that could be more easily handled by the user, give them a better user experience. So we have our little tick list of things that we're presenting to the vendor all the time and saying, okay, where are we at on that? Let's move this. Okay. So our users, our testers are actually saying a lot of good things about it. They're like, okay, well, this is a little, this needs to be a little different here. This calculation was off or whatever. But overall, the site is good. It's solid. Well done. So good feedback so far.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent that you did that.
How many testers did you get approximately?
About 50.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and we're always looking for more, by the way.
I will say, like, I jumped on board early testing, and the changes from what it's been 9 months
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
to today. It's a markedly different look and feel, and the feature functionality, and getting pretty close to feature parity and then some.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll be excited to push this one, push this one up the hill faster.
And how long is testing anticipated to run for?
Well, I'm not going to release it to 13,000 customers until it's perfect. So the goal is shortly after the new year. But if it's not perfect, I'm going to hold the vendor's feet to the fire and say, make it perfect, because I can't release this until it's right. So my personal goal shortly after the new year.
And you mentioned tester requirements. What are the tester requirements?
There were only a couple. One, they had to pay their WMGLD bill one of three ways, either a one-time payment, or they could do scheduled payments, or they could set up their auto pay. We didn't make it a requirement for them to go paperless, but I begged and pleaded with them to do that anyways, because I do want that to be part of the user experience and tested more completely. So a lot of them went ahead. Actually, a lot of them signed up for paperless before they even signed up for the auto pay. So. Okay. All right. There we go. So this one's pretty exciting to me because I've been wanting to do this one for a while. It's this is a goal to increase the ability for the gas department to be able to do their job in a more efficient way. We've been relying on spreadsheets for years to maintain. Nothing wrong with spreadsheets, Mark. I understand that, but you know where I'm going. We've been using spreadsheets for years to maintain our gas meter data. And it worked fine for a while, but it's really time to modernize the process. Did someone ask something? Sorry.
No, just if I may make a quick comment, the gas data that's in here in our book around leaks, around services moved outside, inside, outside services, meters replaced, all those things are, as Jeff said, they're all on different spreadsheets. And so they manually touched a lot of places and they enter data multiple times, sometimes the same data. So that was the goal that Jeff was. So this data that you see in a very capsulized form here is tied back through many spreadsheets. So
Yeah, much more efficient, much more user
Oh, yeah.
friendly.
So basically what we're doing is we're creating an online tool for the gas department to use for their gas meter information. The project is multi-phased. The first phase, the one we're working on right now, deals with the handling of the 7-year cycle of testing gas meters and other aspects of what the gas guys in the field work on. So we've hired an absolutely brilliant developer who's the president of Phoenix Business Computing. He is brilliant, and he will create the online database to replace the spreadsheets, and it's going to allow the guys to enter new gas meter data, extract or display the data that they really need, and create reports on what meters have run their 7-year cycle and need to be tested. All of this without the risk of breaking formulas and other, vulnerabilities that come with Excel when Excel isn't your strength, kind of thing. So the next phase that we're going to work on after this first one is done will have to do with the things that the gas superintendent works on. And we're going to make his job a whole lot easier. Pretty excited about that. I've been wanting to do this one for a long time. This is Jeff has a sad face on this one, but this project was gaining speed, and we were really going pretty full force on this one. But what this project is, it'll make our meter change workflow more fluid and insert more accuracy checks for what happens out in the field versus in the office. So it's going to mitigate the miscommunications that can occur between the field and the office. And it's a definite need. The project was started early this year, and we were about to start the training phase of it a few months ago. But for various reasons, we had to put the brakes on it. And this project's been put on hold until after January. So I understand why we had to do that, but it would have been really great to get that one livened up.
Jeff, is this Is this
Yeah.
just gas meters or is this also?
No, this is electric. This is basically the meter technicians, anything they do out in the field or the electric department, the gas department, anything that happens out in the field regarding meters. Doesn't matter whether it's gas or electric. If it happens out in the field, and it's got to come back to the office, we want it to come back to the office accurately. No misunderstandings about, someone's penmanship or, a typo or anything like that. We want it to be accurate. So we've got this system puts some checks in place to make sure that what is being entered in the billing system is really what happened in the field.
How often is there a situation where a customer questions the accuracy of the meter and you actually agree to test it? If you did test it, if the DPU ordered you to test a meter, an electric meter, where would you send it to test? You don't have a lab here.
Now, if we had to send it out, we would send it to.
We sent it to Itron, Reading. Reading is a certified test,
Testing.
so we could bring it over to Reading
Yeah.
and have them test it over there. They have 2 stations that are tested and calibrated, and they're perfect for what we need. And it doesn't happen. I can't even tell you honestly when the last time we tested
Yeah.
a meter because it was an issue, but we bring it over there, have them give us the
We
report.
could put a check meter on if we have to.
Yep.
And, I mean, we get questioned about high bill complaints sometimes and we'll go out and check the meter, but,
But then you're mainly just checking.
Yeah. right. But if I can't, maybe a handful of times in 15 years where we've had to go prove a meter, it doesn't happen that often.
So that's all I've got. I know you got a busy night ahead, but if anyone has any questions.
Just have a quick question, Jeff. So this Spry mobile solution, is it like a device? What is the technology? Is it?
No, this is it's a web application that'll sit on the vendor's servers, and that will allow our users to enter data in the field that has been pre-populated because it actually touches Cogsdale. So Cogsdale, the billing software. So any information what can happen is right now people are writing things down, but it might be that someone misinterpreted a number, a meter ID or something, and it has to be corrected in our side. We're trying to mitigate that because it causes problems. So this is a software. It's a software as a service. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term. Okay, so it's a software as a service that's going to allow our users to touch Cogsdale while they're even out in the field.
Thank you.
So is next year gonna be as exciting for you as this year has been?
More so, I'm sure of it. Wait, this is recorded, isn't it? No.
So I mean, I just want to comment that Cogsdale upgrade was a huge thing and he's not minimized. There were virtually there weren't people, I sometimes fear that people will be beating down my door with stakes and fire when something happens in the software world, and there was barely a blip on the screen. The team came in over the weekend, Mark came in over the weekend, Jeff, it went about as well as you can expect any software upgrade to go. They did an amazing job. So Jeff deserves a lot of credit for pushing that through the finish line and with minimal headaches.
Right, congratulations, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great night.
You too.
Thank you, too.
All right, bye now.
Okay, well, that was good. That's really good. All right, so that brings us to new business. Specialized Energy Code. Tom asked to include this on the agenda, hoping to get a vote in support of a statement supporting the town warrant article on the stretch code. I personally, I'll just say it right now, I personally am very supportive of Tom's motion. And I initially had just a couple of questions for Tom. One was that at town meeting, we'll be voting on changes to the bylaws that will allow the town to incorporate the stretch code into our local building code. Well, it's a state building code, but and having read the warrant, I'm satisfied with that the changes to the bylaws do in fact properly incorporate, in my opinion, the new stretch code. And the other question that I had was a little bit of tweaking around the language that Tom had proposed, but so I asked Tom to just throw a couple of slides together for us, and he's done that. So Tom, you want to take it away?
Yep. Absolutely. So what I'll be asking the board to vote on is essentially the board in support of Article 7. This is draft language. We can absolutely change this as a board. I just put this out there as framework. I think, was that included in the board book? I actually didn't go
I
through.
didn't see it.
Okay.
No.
So this is what I had drafted. We can go through this. And then just the footnotes is the footnote number 1 links back to the town warrant, and footnote number 2 links back to the state's 2050 goals. When everyone's ready, I can just go through the kind of quick presentation on the optimized stretch code and what it is.
Why don't we do that and then come back?
Okay, yep, I can do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So put this in presentation mode. So essentially the optimized stretch code or specialized energy code builds on top of we have our base electrical code, building code, and then we have the stretch code, which the town adopted as well. And then this goes on top of that stretch code as well. The primary goal of this was the state put this in place to allow municipalities to reach the state's net zero 2050 goals. And it impacts only new construction. One of the reasons being is we could completely decarbonize our electrical system, and the town of Wakefield would not make the state's 2050 goals. And there will be financial impacts to the town if we don't make those goals. That there is the legislation has impacts there as well. And the ESC has just done a greenhouse gas inventory for Wakefield, and 55% is from buildings. So even if we completely decarbonize the grid, the state would not make, or the town of Wakefield would not make the goals. We need to do both, and the way we do that is through building code. And one of the things that the Department of Energy looked at, and these are conservative numbers, is 27% of all new building space. So from 2023, 27% by 2050 will be new construction.
I'm
And
sorry, when did it was 2009 when the stretch code became available to cities and towns to adopt. When did Wakefield adopt the stretch? code?
I actually have that in here. We adopted that when
January.
yeah, it was
This year.
January.
It was this year.
Yeah, it went in, where did I put that in?
It went into effect January of this year, but I think we voted on it as a town, the previous.
Oh, at
Yeah.
in the previous fall town meeting.
Yeah.
Like,
Correct.
From the vote, I believe so.
Oh, you know what? That's in my other town meeting deck. It's a different deck.
Oh.
So we are, we adopted the stretch code. We're here. The specialized code builds on top of that. It only impacts new construction. And what's in green is what the specialized code does. So if you are building an all electric home, there is no change. It is only if you choose what they call a mixed fuel or fossil fuel, does it require that the home have solar installed and pre-wiring for electrification of that home? As we all know, new construction, it's pennies on the dollar versus renovation after the fact. And this is kind of protecting the end user of that building from those, costs. So kind of future proofing that as well. And then for kind of same for the multifamily, all electric does move into a passive home, which or passive house constructing methodology. And it is passive house methodology construction is there's quite a bit of it going on in Massachusetts, and it's efficiencies built into the home for energy usage through construction and materials. And then if you do go with a fossil fuel, you do have to do that pre-wiring for electrification. Passive house does have the solar as part of it anyway, so that's why it's not typically called out here. And then same thing for commercial buildings as well, is pre-wire for electrification and adding solar to that. And these are only for new construction, so anything that is new construction.
Can I ask a quick
Yep.
question? Is multifamily definition Wakefield's or the state's? Because
So
Wakefield's is
the-
like 2+.
So this is the multifamily here takes the way that the code is written, takes upon the way our building codes are. So from we as gas and light say more than one, the state is actually 4. So this is because it is in the construction code or the building codes. So multifamily is 4+ for them.
Here it is.
The sworn that the residential stretch code was based on the residential volume of the state building code, which is up to 2-family as long as it's not more than 3 stories high. So anything that's 3-story, according to the state, would be.
It's good, it's all falls into our building, the state's building codes. So, that's how that definition works, and that's where the multifamily definition would fall in. From, gas and light says anything more than 1 is multifamily. This is all within the building code, so it's separate in that aspect.
Yeah, so I think it's 3. It's considered multifamily by the state, but 2.
Yeah, so they have, it's 4 families or over 12,000 square feet is the way that this is done in the code. So like I said, what's in the specialized code is only applies to new construction. Solar has to be installed if a fossil fuel and pre-wiring. What it is not a ban on fossil fuels. You can absolutely pick that, and it does no embodied carbon accounting as well. And from a impacts, it reduces the opt-in code does, in conjunction with the stretch code that we already have, does make buildings more efficient, but the specialized code, there's modest electrical peak, but mostly beneficial electrification on the grid. And within the code, there are some things that for demand reduction, especially on the commercial side. There's things built into the stretch code and the specialized code for linking in for demand reduction on the grid.
So let me ask you to clarify what you said just a little bit ago about even if we fully decarbonize, the town's not going to be able to meet the state's goal, and we
From
would
the
have-
electric, yeah, because 55% of our carbon production comes from buildings.
And
So,
then we could be subject to some kind of financial penalties from the state,
correct.
even if we adopt the specialized code.
The specialized code is to give us the pathways through building to meet those goals. And so that's why the state put the opt-in code in place because they realized the burden of making the net zero 2050 goals isn't just on the grid. The grid alone, and this is across the state, it's not just Wakefield, the grid across the state, even if it completely decarbonized, more than 50% of carbon emissions come from stationary buildings. So it's three parts is stationary buildings, transportation, and electrical generation. And electrical generation is actually the smallest piece of the pie when you look at the whole total state.
Wow.
So the Department of Energy, when they were developing the stretch code, they also developed this for municipalities to opt into this, to give us the pathways to make the state's 2050 goals.
The electric grid's also the furthest along on meeting its 2050 targets by a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Correct, yeah. And kind of the thought process-y that goes on is right, the beneficial electrification, when you electrify a building and we get cleaner on the grid, we bring that building along with us. If that building is tied to fossil fuel, it is what it is until you change it. And that's where the pre-wiring comes in, is that it is protecting the end user of that building, saving them the renovation costs, because at that point in time, it's kind of plug and play. You say, I want to electrify, you've already got your panel has the capability of the load, you want to change out your stove, the plug's right there. Your dryer, your heating system, all of that wiring is in place. And this is the ESC's flyer on that as well.
And Sharon, we're gonna put this up front too.
Any questions?
Can you go back?
Where,
Thought I had a question about something.
which slide? Was it one of these slides or?
I think, wasn't there one that talked about how many towns have already,
Oh, there is,
or is that not?
Line number 2.
slide number 2, yes.
Okay, yeah, can you tell me what the 51, 280 and the 23, so it was 23 so far have adopted the specialized?
Correct, yeah, and that number actually
It's increasing.
might have
Yeah,
gone up
by
already.
now.
Yeah, and then, there's 280 communities that are, and we're one of them, that are already stretch code. I didn't put it in this one. This is one that for our presentation at town meeting, but I knew I had the date. So we adopted the stretch code in May of 2021. It went in effect in July of 1st of 2021. And same thing with the proposed, and I know that our videos over there. This will be a town meeting on the 18th. The effective date, if passed, would be July 1st, 2024. The Department of Revenue or Department of Energy has asked when an adoption happens to be give 6 months and to standardize either on July 1st or January 1st, whichever one gives 6 months or more for that.
And you mean Department of Energy Resources, DOER?
Yeah, DOER, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
DOER, when they, put together kind of the packet, and when towns and cities adopt this, that they ask that, give 6 months and, have the effective date either on July 1st or January 1st.
Can we go through each of the slides that show residential, multifamily and commercial? Because I want to understand how our WMD's new construction policies related to gas interact with this.
Ours is higher.
Right, so basically there will be, for example, residential low rise. When it says mixed fuel new homes.
Yep.
Someone could build an oil fueled home, and this would all be true, but there would be no. Am I getting this right? There would be no gas fueled home.
Or,
Fuel.
yeah, it's because our moratorium is only on multifamily. So
So just on that one. slide.
on this one slide.
Yep.
And commercial, right, because we do not have a moratorium on commercial. So this slide here, in Wakefield, the mixed fuel could only be with our moratorium in place, oil or propane,
Okay, got it.
from a multi,
But the likelihood of a family as defined by, I guess,
four
The
or,
state.
yeah.
going, oil or propane, probably
low.
unlikely.
And once you get to 4+, they're not gonna go oil or propane.
Yeah, but I think what would be helpful, because not a lot of people know about WMGLD's policy, I think, is to, if you are presenting this, is to add that on this slide or at least mention it.
Yeah, I
The
certainly-
gas is not actually an option. Yeah.
Yep.
The gas multifamily is not an option, and that's been in play for a while, just so that,
When did that come
We
into? play?
voted the moratorium in 18. There were some legacy buildings in the process at the time, but since that time, the original driver was the big ones, because they have the most ability to deal with the issue right up front with better designs.
That house on the corner of Cedar Street and Albion, what did they end up doing? Or did I even ask you recently? That was the one who wanted the gas and we said no.
Yeah, they went with heat pumps.
They did, okay. Okay, great. Any other questions before we discuss the language that was proposed for the statement that we would adopt? So looking at the statement, the only concern that I had, you guys can all read it if you haven't seen it yet and think about, but I did have one concern where it says we support, the last sentence, we supported its requirements of making buildings more energy efficient, thereby reducing operational costs for consumers. And I just thought maybe it's not our operational costs, I don't think. I think it would be our energy supply costs. And I didn't know if anyone else had a thought on that, but that's the only concern that I had about the language proposed.
I mean, it's really reducing energy consumption.
Well,
And also,
but and the other point too is that it's reducing it versus what it would be, but not reducing it versus what it is. Right, because we're still gonna have low growth.
Right.
So it's just reducing, and it's only reducing it for those residents, reducing it versus what it would be. But that part's nitpicky, but I do think that energy.
So you wanna,
Well, see, yeah, but see,
you wanna strike through, like, reducing energy consumption and getting rid of operational costs for consumers. And so this gets struck through, so we remove this.
yeah, but that's similar to what you originally proposed when you originally showed this to me, was it said reducing residents' bills. And I said, but my bill's not gonna go down. So it's not residents' bills, it's only the people who would be in these new homes. Their bills would be reduced, but not from what they are, because they don't have bills, because they don't exist. So they would only be reduced versus what they would be if they weren't to be built under this stretch code.
Well, I think he's right with the revision he just had, with more energy efficient, thereby reducing the prior, you just put it back in, I think.
Yeah,
Thereby reducing energy consumption and providing beneficial electrification of the grid. When you took out the cost part, I think that made it right.
Taking out the costs.
Yeah,
and again, this isn't we're in support of this from a grid perspective and a utility perspective. How does this, why are we as a board in support of this? And It's, from the beneficial electrification, and we alone can't meet the state's 2050 goals. So this, it's kind of I think of this as a yin and a yang. We need the building code in order for us to be successful in our work in decarbonizing the grid.
Instead of reducing energy, should we say reducing fossil fuel energy consumption? Because electric energy is gonna be.
Right, actually reducing fossil fuel consumption and providing beneficial.
Right,
Because from an energy perspective, the electric is gonna go up.
Yeah,
That's true, but wouldn't it also? For us folks that are on the gas system, by encouraging customers to go electric and not tie into the gas system is going to reduce demand on the system, especially during those peak days.
this one, as Jack was saying,
So-
this is the new stuff, so this is,
Right,
We're not adding load.
it wouldn't, it's like
well,
yeah,
for those,
it's not gonna be new load. The key to the other part is this stuff we'll start discussing energy conservation was getting existing load to go off. This is just
right,
preventing new
no,
load.
I understand that.
Yeah,
So if you just follow my logic for a sec. If you have a if you're a new construction residential home, and you have a choice, right? Whether you want to go on gas or you can electrify. The more customers we can get to encourage to electrify and not get on our system is going to be better for those who are on the system because of like what we discussed our last session.
Yeah.
Those volatile energy supply costs, global markets we don't have control over, those cold snaps,
the peaks,
the
yeah.
peaks.
Yeah.
It's going to help, manage those so we don't have to truck in LNG at exorbitant prices because we can, we'll be able to, the fewer people that we can get off gas,
Right.
the better for the customers that are on gas, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, because it'll prevent the peak from growing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you
But
want
it's
to
a
say
little-
that.
It's a little bit further of a stretch because of the new construction, it's true, but when you add the one home at a time, it's.
Yes, it's different from if we didn't
Right.
have a gas ban for multifamily.
Right.
It would be different. Did you follow?
I do.
Yeah,
I think to
yeah.
be able to vote on this though and put it into like public record for all of us, it's gonna have to be very to the point
Yeah,
and direct. And so with that in mind, I also have a question about the beneficial, I
Yeah.
don't disagree with you that
Yeah.
there's a lot of benefits.
Well, the reason
But-
I bring it up is because when you go to town meeting, and this is only going to be affecting new construction, most people are gonna be like, well, I don't care, what's in it for me? I'm not gonna build a new house. Most people who own their own homes are not gonna see what the benefit is, so. What is the benefit to those people who are gonna be voting? The majority of the people that are gonna be voting, because if you're building a new house, you probably don't live here. Or you're probably not voting.
I mean, it's like, it's
And-
cost down the road from not meeting requirements.
Yeah, it's, cost avoidance.
Cost avoidance, down the road.
Down the road, and you kind of have to do it now, because when you build a building, right, that building is here for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, especially if we're,
Yeah.
talking.
I guess what I'm trying to say is this, it's kind of like follows the same logic as getting people to adopt heat pumps, so.
We wanna,
Can we add also making new buildings more energy efficient?
yeah,
Because
make
add into new
yeah.
buildings.
Yes, it is
Yeah,
new
make it more-
buildings.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion.
And then with Dave were whispering, instead of fossil fuel, maybe reducing carbon emission?
Well, I was gonna add that, I was gonna actually recommend we replace beneficial electrification with the, like, reducing fossil fuel consumption and associated carbon emissions, basically.
Okay.
Because
It's
I'm not sure a lot of people know what beneficial electrification is.
Yeah.
Very
Insiders know it.
Concept, yeah.
Because I remember I asked you guys to clarify that for me a long time ago, because electrification means something else, technically speaking.
Yeah.
Rural electrification,
Carbon
for
emission.
instance, it means bringing electricity.
Carbon, yep,
That's a whole different.
and associated, carbon. By reducing, and so, yeah, we don't, so, just strike, yeah,
Reduction and
reduction is.
and everything
redundant.
else beyond it. potentially.
And the rest of the
Uh,
remaining sentence, yeah.
Yeah,
So does that get to what you were bringing up, Sharon, or do we still want to add, because it's more than just.
I-
It's more than just reducing the fossil fuel consumption and emissions, but it's also curbing. Any increases to peak load, peak costs in, energy supply costs, which I brought up earlier,
for,
in the peak.
The only thing coming up,
Because it's oil too.
Yeah.
A lot there.
There's a little bit more of a stretch to make that statement. I think could confuse people. Like Mrs. Smith might say, so my electric bill's going down, my gas bill's going down next year because I avoided this peak, so.
Well, that's, I wouldn't say reduce, but it could curb increases to, in peak. Basically it's capacity cost, but I'm trying not to get too,
Yeah,
Potentially. I mean,
I kind of agree with Jen that it's gotta be simple and to the point.
okay.
Yeah.
the only thing,
We're getting like layers of nuance that we would understand, but the average Mrs. Smith
I
would.
just like the avoidance of future compliance costs with the legislation,
Yeah.
but
do want to add that as another line, the one thing with the requirements, on the building efficiency, energy efficiency, we've kind of removed the pre-wiring electrification. I don't know if that makes a difference or not within this statement, because it's
isn't that on the code already?
well, if we adopt this, that'll be in the code. And that's why we're supporting Article 7. So the statement is why we as a body are supporting the town to adopt this specialized code.
Yeah, because if you're not reducing fossil fuel consumption, you're kind of forcing pre-wiring in solar. Because for those customers that continue to use fossil fuel.
And it's,
That's where the benefication of
Yeah,
the
electric-
beneficial electrification
which is,
came
I mean,
in.
we don't, again, this isn't changing the code. This is just why we're supporting it.
Yeah.
And do we want, Jen, do you want to put a line at the end about this positions that the town for the cost avoidance of non-compliance?
Or you could say the positive puts us on a pathway to,
Yeah,
that's
not
you're a
us as a.
compliance guru, what do you?
I know, people aren't gonna know what that means, reduce the
Okay.
cost of future compliance, they're gonna be like, what the hell does that?
but could you flip?
But that's,
Yeah.
that's of the department, right? The cost of compliance is not gonna be on the department, it's gonna be on the town. So
It's on the town,
should
yeah.
make that statement rather than us as a
Okay.
gas and light department.
Uh-huh.
That's fair.
So what we're saying is that if it's energy efficient, it's gonna reduce consumption, fossil consumption and obviously the associated emissions. But it's still missing the point that it can also help to reduce peak costs. So it's not just that it's good for the environment, it's also good for cost. So that's the thing that, go ahead.
I agree, but there's also the other side that we're hearing a lot lately with. A lot of the offshore winds are dropping off because of cost associated with it. So where is the energy production gonna come from? We're gonna take the gas from homes and they're gonna go straight to the power plants producing the electricity. So from a peak cost perspective,
Yeah.
we might still be paying high prices on the gas side,
Because
depending on what the fuel mix of generation is gonna be.
even in that scenario, the fuel
Well-
being diverted from the homes and businesses for heating, they're less efficient. So from a generation perspective, the gas-fired plants on a per therm basis, like if you're doing a measurement of a joule or a therm, it's been shown that that's more efficient to from an energy perspective, even if it is being diverted from the home, going into there, you're getting more energy out of that, more efficiency out of that, thermal fuel.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it could be that.
I mean, we're splitting hairs.
Like geothermal systems that don't necessarily need even like as much electricity to function, so it's a mixture of things.
I don't disagree. There are other benefits. I just think that this is the clearest way to say it.
I mean, I don't want to write more like
Without getting
technical here.
into a world of
Yeah,
Technical.
that was kind of where I was trying to go with is.
I think a fourth grader would understand this. I think we need to keep it at that
Yes.
fourth grade
Yeah.
level rather than go.
very.
There's a better chance with that than if we had more words.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it very high level and
Yes.
simple when my framework that I had done. I told,
No, I like that. I
I
like
told Jack that no way did I think I was gonna have it perfect.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Can I do some grammatical or like
Absolutely.
tweaking?
Have
So the adoption of the specialized energy, can that be?
energy
non-cap
code.
Specialized energy?
code, yeah, code's missing too, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about, I saw that earlier.
Do you want everything cap or just the first?
Well, you've got it bolded and capitalized, so
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah,
with that.
the state capitalizes it, so we should.
I don't know. Other edits.
And then we support its, maybe can we just say the codes or something, you know, so it's crystal clear what that means.
Well, I can live with it. Oh, I mean,
Blowing into our.
it's fine. I mean, you know, it's just that, you know, it. Because again, we're only talking about, it's only gonna have an impact on those new buildings, right? So it's not gonna reduce fuel emissions, fossil consumption everywhere else in the town. And it's not gonna reduce the town's capacity costs. But it would reduce emissions and costs that would be associated with these buildings if they weren't subject to the specialized code. So I still kind of think cost is something that people might like to hear.
Yeah, there will be a presentation, you know, and the Department of Energy Resource, when they did this code, they studied 12 different building types and did around like 10,000 building scenarios. And they came up with, you know, the cost going from, in general, the cost to go from the stretch code to the specialized code. If you're going all electric, there's no change in construction cost. The increase going, if you pick a fossil fuel, is 1 to 3% of the, and you know, and it's in the pre-wiring perspective. And honestly, that protects the end user who is the ultimate, you know, owner of that building for, you know, if they, whether it's a single family or a commercial building and they want to move over to electrification, you know, they're done already, and it saves them costs in renovation costs and doing that because the panel's already there, the wiring's already there.
On that last sentence, is it that we support the code or we support the town's adoption of the code? Because the code is already.
Yeah, well, I guess the town's adoption of the code.
Well, it's your adoption because we're supporting the requirements under the code. You're not supporting the code, we're supporting the requirements that the code would impose in Wakefield.
My thought is this is why we as a board are supporting Article 7 and the componentry of the code. And I'm happy, you know, that was my intention. If that's not coming across, then maybe we need to.
Are you saying, Elton, the first sentence, the Wakefield support
The first
the
sentence-
adoption of the
Yeah,
town's meeting
Right,
article?
but then the last sentence
And also the,
sounds like we're supporting the requirements of the code, which the code is already set and the requirements have already been identified. Those are not up
Yeah.
for debate.
Correct.
yeah, so I,
So you're on-
Yeah, okay, I see where you're going because the town is being asked to adopt
Yes,
the stretch code, so we can say we support adoption of the specialized code. That makes sense.
Which will reduce.
Yeah.
For new building or making the new buildings more energy efficient.
So what, how do you want to?
We support adoption of the specialized energy code.
to make new buildings more efficient instead of
So we support.
Yeah, to
the-
make new, yeah.
we
That would
support
work.
the adoption
adoption.
of the code.
Adoption of the code.
Okay, specialized energy code.
You
Yeah.
spell it
yeah,
again?
yeah.
Come up with what's the acronym?
SEC.
SEC.
Yeah, I don't know, I like that.
There's already an SEC.
Adoption of the specialized
You
energy.
need an acronym.
The two make sense.
And its requirements of making.
No, I just say
No, just-
to make new buildings more energy.
Okay,
efficient.
so, yeah, so good.
Mm,
Like it's analysis and the acronym. Was crap. That's not gonna work.
All right.
I'm fine.
You okay with this, Jack?
I mean, yeah, if, so we're leaving out cost.
Yeah,
Well-
I was just thinking about it. If we didn't have a ban. Most of the multifamily, most of new construction in Wakefield is driven by multifamily.
Yes.
So if we didn't have the gas ban on multifamilies, I think that would be a very clear driver. You know, it would have a huge, a greater impact on cost.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it,
Clear.
okay.
But
So because of the difference between electric capacity costs and gas capacity costs are two different things, so. And
Right.
if this here accomplishes our goal, if we're all in agreement on this, this accomplishes our goal of sending the message to town that we support it, and I think this is pretty satisfactory, in my opinion.
Anyone else?
You will make a motion.
Go for it.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the support of the town adopting the specialized energy code.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Excellent. Thank you for putting that together, Tom.
Where do we? Publish this,
Hmm?
put this on,
We can put it on our news.
yeah, you guys, all right, I'll send this over to you.
Yep.
And then,
Well, are you gonna read it into the record on the night?
The
of
town meeting?
the-
yeah, I don't know, so. I had a couple of thoughts in terms of, I know I, was gonna ask Pete to be part of the ESC presentation to give, 5 or 10 minutes real short of why the code, through the lens of gas and light, why the code is important. And then, I don't know if Jack, if you as the chair want to read this in, or I'm happy to read it in as well, but since you're the chair, I'll defer to.
Yeah,
to you.
yeah, I mean, I guess I can get up that early in the morning and go.
Oh, it is Article 7, it's the last one.
Yeah, the business stuff only takes like half an hour.
Yeah, so.
But you gotta be there by like 8:30.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense, yeah.
I gotta be in Maine by 2:30, so if it
Oh
runs
my God,
really
this is
long.
the last one.
So you're planning to be there, Pete?
Yeah.
If it runs too long, you'll have to do his presentation, so.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing
If it
that.
runs too long, you'll.
Not that great at public.
In Maine.
All right.
So are you presenting something, Pete?
I'm just gonna have, I think I'll
What
just
did
do
he
a couple
say?
of talking points,
what will your main points be?
mostly focused on the larger goal. That's where I can get into a little of the
Well, that's-
nuance, yeah.
Okay,
I think keeping the statement simple, but I can discuss a few items of the nuance around peaks cost us money, and that's why it's beneficial. And then I was gonna hit a little bit on the 20, that 20%, 27% number of new construction over the next 30 years is brought up in a lot of my other forums, like the GSEP stuff that I'm working on. Like, there's a big push to make sure that as we kick this around and change GSEP, we gotta realize that the fastest, quickest place is to start with the new construction, you know, so.
It's that, and it's also part of the 5 million buildings to be decarbonized by 2050, so.
Yeah.
But you're gonna be presenting from those slides?
So I won't be, I'll be up there, I believe, in the working group from the, because ESC is sponsoring this. It'll be an ESC person. I think it will be Tiana. Will be the presenter. I'll be up there to support from, the working group that I was part of.
Well, so here's what I envision, like, a lot of times, when there's an article and it's been supported by another board, then whoever's presenting the article then will say, oh, the finance committee also supports this. And then the person will just get up and read a statement and then sit down. And
Yeah.
so maybe I'll just jump up and read. the
Yeah,
statement.
absolutely. Yeah, we can either have you come,
'Cause I don't want it to be like Keystone Cops. You're gonna get up and then I'm gonna get up and someone else is gonna get up.
No, it's, there'll be a presentation, very similar slides that I did. That ESC will present around, the education of the town meeting body. Pete will be part of that, and then, we can make you part of it, or if you wanna, after the presentation's done, you can get up and do,
Yeah.
and we can talk about all that offline.
Yeah, we can, yeah, because we don't even have to actually, I don't think, present the actual statement. We're voting on the statement, which
Yeah.
means that, because normally what they'll do is somebody from the finance committee will stand up and just say, from the finance committee, we support the motion. And then they sit down. They don't read something, you know what I mean? So maybe that's all I would have to do.
Yeah.
So we can work that
We can
out.
work
Maybe
that out,
talk to Tom Mullen about it, see how it should work.
No. Sounds good.
Okay, moving on. That brings us to the energy efficiency program budget and programs review.
Sure, so we included a lot of information in here, I think, I'll let Joe talk a little bit about what we've included. And part of it is to look at what we've spent kind of this year, and then I recommend, at a high level, and I shared this in the email, basically, we're recommending holding the energy conservation charge constant. If you look from a customer perspective, we went from $3.60 a year to $45 a year to $52 a year to $63 a year in what we were charging our customers for the energy conservation stuff. So there was a little concern last year that we just keep raising it. So the recommendation is try to hold it constant this year. Every 10th of a cent we increase it adds about $10 to $11 a year for our average customer in terms of their annual bill. So we're just trying to keep that in mind, but also readdress how the programs are distributed a little bit. And we've had some conversations in the past several months about making some changes within there that we can still hold the budget constant, but move our focus in a couple of different areas. So with that, I'll have Joe just do a quick review.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pete, for the introduction. So the first page, which is page 50, that's kind of, similar as last year and every year, is the pie chart of the prior year and where we spent the money. A big piece there you'll note is the EV chargers. I mean, that's kind of a 1 year type of expense. So that's which we also got grant money for. So that's why the number is for last year seems a lot higher than what we're going to budget for in the next year. So right under that one is the graph of the actual rebates captured. And so that line item on page 50, the 249, which is the rebates and incentives.
It's actually page 47 in their book for some reason, Joe.
Oh,
Right, so the pie, are you still on the pie chart?
I'm going down to the next page.
Okay.
I was just relating the pie chart, the number, the 249,000 for the rebates and incentives line from the pie chart page into the next page, you'll see at the bottom, the FY 2023, there's the 248,985. So that's where that number ties out. And then it's a graph showing for the past 3 fiscal years, kind of where our programs have shifted towards, with some additions. You'll see some zeros in prior years for certain things that we didn't offer before, like induction range and the lawn equipment stuff. So the next one after that is kind of the recommendations page. So you'll see that the FY 23 actuals is the first piece up there. And then right below that is the FY 24 budget. And so then included on the side of each of those line items is the rationale behind the increases or decreases. So starting from the top, kind of one of the biggest ones is reducing the rebate for the solar from 1.2 from $1.20 a watt to 80 cents a watt. So this kind of brings us into the range of what other people are offering. Still, I think we're on the higher side compared to some municipalities, but I think there was only one other municipality that I could see that was still at the 120, I think, and that's just a carryover for when there was from when there was grant funding, I think, from that. So the other one is so that money that we saved there, we're trying to redistribute into the rebates and incentives, specifically the heat pump updates. And additionally, the removal of gas is part of there too, and that shifts to the heat pumps and insulation, which you'll see the recommendations on the next page. Besides that, not too much moving, just some 10% increases on certain things. And so you'll see kind of down the bottom of that page is kind of where the breakout of how we got from last year's actual numbers to what we're projecting for the new year. So and that kind of ties to the next page, which shows what we're recommending as changes in the coming year for the rebate program. So the big ones are, we're recommending that the heat pump rebate be broken out into a few different categories to kind of target where not only where the stretch code is going, but I think just for the net zero 2050 goals, because everybody rides on these types of goals here. And so looking at this, the 3 different categories are heat pump the old way. So we're keeping the old way with, if people do not want to include insulation, or if they're not replacing a fossil fuel system completely. So included in that is, so if they put insulation together with a heat pump, the per ton rebate goes up to $750, and then the total rebate cap goes up to $5,500, with the insulation cap also going up to $2,500. And the logic here is the biggest benefit when putting in a heat pump system, one of the biggest benefits is to do it alongside insulation. And so when you do these two together, that's when you get the greatest amount of savings, efficiency, and all those measures. So we want to kind of bump up those rebate cap in total to kind of help people bridge that gap and put those together. Because when I looked at prior years, and I even looked at a couple of years within somebody doing a heat pump, applying for a heat pump rebate, how many people of those 100 or 120 are also applying for insulation rebates in either the year before or the year after? And it's only about 10% or so. But I think if we entice people with higher rebates on the insulation, people will do those two things together, and then that's when they'll get the greatest benefit. Additionally, the induction range has been bumped up a little bit as well. This is to go in line with some other municipalities, as well as the Net Zero program. Things that we're removing is gas heat systems and gas water heaters. And then the other thing is the solar, like I said, going down to $1.20. I mean, going down to 80 cents per watt. So that's kind of the rationale behind kind of the moving parts here. Like Pete said, we're keeping the 0.7 cents, or that's at least our recommendation. for a total budget of just under $700,000.
So just kind of following the same with the heat pump on the induction range. Would there be any meaningful change if, say, if the induction range, if you're converting from RD Electric, keeping it at the old $100 and bumping up if you are replacing a gas stove from 250 to say 300, to, because that's really where we want, right? Someone replacing electric from induction, there is some electrical savings. The induction is more efficient, but I think the goal is to, replace from gas to induction. So bumping the-
How that be tracked though?
you'd have to ask what they have.
Yeah, so I think,
So that,
That-
for what do we require to verify just
Okay.
that thing, it would be hard.
All right, fair.
yeah, that's kind of what I was kind of gonna say is, I think the way we have it now is it's like appliances, you don't need to get an energy audit or a post audit. So I think that's where like that lives in the appliance category. And so then if you throw in, I think it'd be kind of confusing to people if they saw, oh, but for this item, we have to, I mean,
You have to do a post audit of some
yeah,
sort.
so I think that's.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
don't track our customers at that level. We know that you're either a gas customer or a gas heat customer. But we don't know that as a gas customer, you might have a water heater, you might have a stove, you might have both. We don't know, we don't track it at that level.
But there are other advantages to an induction stove besides the efficiency gain, right? People like them.
Yeah.
So people, if someone's gonna replace a stove, someone's gonna get an induction stove without this incentive anyways,
No,
no?
They're much more
They're
expensive.
more expensive.
yeah,
That
they're-
much more?
Yeah.
I know someone who doesn't like to spend money and he or she just put in an induction stove. I was surprised.
Maybe they just like cooking a lot.
yeah,
Like
the-
water quickly.
But so is that much more expensive for an induction? I didn't know it was that much more expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. There's a delta, and the replacing a gas stove in a home, there's health benefits.
Oh, yeah,
as well.
sure.
And that's, there's been multiple studies on that. And that was just my rationale, but not realizing that it adds a layer of complexity. It's, keep it simple then.
well, I was looking at other, like at Belmont, they have a differentiation between replacing like for like induction stove, like going from electric induction stove to another electric induction stove, and they give $100 rebate. But if you go from gas to induction, it's like $500. It's,
The verification.
but I know,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah,
I feel like, it would really help.
I can ask Craig how he's verifying it, but
I don't know what they're doing, but it kind of,
yeah.
it just adds another layer of.
I mean, and I'm just thinking, and this might be a question for Jeff, and I don't know how you validate, but could it just be as simple as asking the customer when they're filling out the form to take a picture and upload the picture on the form of their old stove?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to ask how
I'll
they're
ask how
doing
Craig's
it.
doing. Let me check with Craig how
I mean,
he's.
if they used to have a gas account, you would know.
Well,
Well,
not necessarily.
not necessarily, because they may not be using it for the current stove, but so there's another layer of verification. Or if they have a gas account, they might be just gas heat.
Right.
So.
But when you have to do relights after there's a gas outage, you have to get in the house to relight. And so then I guess they just automatically go to the kitchen and make sure there's not a gas stove.
Yeah, I mean, we don't track that. We don't have a database on what's in everybody's house. Yeah, we'll go in and
What we relit.
Some of the newer ones,
Verify.
you don't need to relight the stoves.
Yeah, most
Oh.
of those don't have a pilot.
Yeah, they don't have pilots anymore. It's all magnetic.
Yeah, I would fall into that category of myself, I have gas heat, but my stove is, resistant electric.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So.
Joe, can I ask a question on page 50 of our book? It's the table, old,
new table.
the new table. So on the first row, you got heat pump cap at 2,000, then you got insulation cap at 1,500. The total is 2,500. All
Yeah,
the
so
other rows
that's,
are adding up.
yeah, so that's just that's our current program is.
Okay.
And that's kind of one of the limitations, I think, of the program is, if they get, I mean, but that's also assuming, I think the average for the rebates for how big the system is about 2.7.
Yep.
In the past 2.7 tons, so they probably would get close to the full, if not the full
Okay.
installation on the average, but yeah, if it was a bigger house or if they were, putting a 4, if they were doing a 4-ton system, then they would only be able to get 500 on the
Right.
insulation cap. But I think that's where the new way, if you are putting it together with the insulation, we can keep the old in and say, well,
You're
it's
either
not
doing A or B most likely, and
Yeah,
now we're truly incenting you to do A and B.
Together, yeah.
that was one of the biggest.
Yeah.
Feedback that I had received is, hey, I'm doing a heat pump and insulation and I'm hitting this
Max.
500 cap.
Yeah.
For everything, including and maybe they did it in, a water heater as well. That cap is global to everything within the EE program for the year.
So we're removing the gas heating system and the gas water heater. What about introducing high efficiency electric water heaters in there with a rebate? If we're truly gonna be incentivized.
We have one.
Water heater. We have heat pump water heaters.
It's just
Yeah.
not in the.
It's, okay, it's not on the table.
Not one of the ones that's changing.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't.
But are you talking about just a electric, a high efficiency electric hot water heater that doesn't have a heat pump?
Hot water heaters.
I'm sorry.
Are you talking about an electric hot water heater that's high efficiency that does not have a heat pump, incentivizing those?
Yeah, like the on-demand type water heaters, which are not heat.
Which are not heat pump.
We haven't.
We don't have anything like that.
Yeah, we haven't incented those.
I'm just bringing up our table now.
Joey, can you share do you have the current table?
Or I have it if you want me to share it real quick.
what table would that be? Are you looking for?
The existing rebate
Oh.
table?
Sure, hold on a second.
Would that be something we would be interested in
Right.
incentivizing or?
We didn't budget for it. In this current format, we didn't budget for it.
Cause that was a question I had too.
I think it would be minimal, given how few people are buying them.
Do you want the flyer, the thing that's online? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Let me pop it open.
here, I have it up.
There we go.
Maybe if I got rid of the Zoom screen. Was that
So on the,
heat pump hot, or yeah, 500.
mhm,
And we're removing, this one is being removed.
right, but could it be replaced with a electric hot water heater that's high efficiency? Is that something that? would
Do
be
they have it?
helpful?
Joe, do you know if they have efficiency ratings on those hot water heaters?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they
Yeah.
do. There's like the tankless ones, there's some high efficiency ones that aren't heat pump ones, so maybe it's, it's something we could look at.
Yeah, I agree with Elton that I don't think there would be that many of them if we added it in.
Well, budget impact should be minimal.
Minimal, yeah.
And what about clothes dryer? Is that heat pump clothes dryer? That's fourth on the list, or is that just
So I think
Energy
that's,
Star.
I think that's just an Energy Star.
Yeah,
would we consider making that a heat pump clothes dryer?
we could, we'll just get, the appliance rebates don't really move the needle and they're more of a goodwill thing than anything, you know what I mean? It's, some of these things are having relatively minimal impact, but they're also relatively minimal cost. We're only giving $50.
I know, and that was another question I had. I don't know how much, these appliances cost if relative to, I mean, is $50
It's
just to drop in
consistent,
a
it's consistent
bucket
with
or?
the net zero, like.
Is
we're
it
consistent
enough?
With the net zero offerings and the other utilities, so we're actually probably on the high end of some of those. We haven't done detailed analysis on each one, but
It takes like most of the Energy Star ones are heat
Yeah.
pump.
yeah.
If you go down,
You
you go
gotta
down,
look
it's,
at like
yeah,
tankless.
right there,
tankless
so,
water.
right there,
Right there.
those are.
Well, but this
that's
is,
electric, that's.
this is program, these are fossil fuels.
There's
Yeah,
electric and they look like that,
tankless, natural gas.
so
I wonder if I can,
I've been tankless.
or just say power source electric
Has to do the immediate heat, the
and
instantaneous.
tankless.
You have to put a.
Interesting.
This question is, do we want to encourage? that
yeah.
or-
Oh, did I not apply the filter?
Heat pump. I mean,
Yeah.
given the climate that we live in.
Was that tankless one, was that electric?
If it's-
No, this is nat gas,
Nat gas?
which is interesting, like,
Do they offer that one?
Makes it.
Yeah.
We'll look into it.
Yeah, okay.
If we wanna add that, we could, it's not, like you said, there's probably gonna be minimal of them. So the appliance rebates account for about, what did we say this morning, about
I think
3%?
it's 2% of the entire energy
700.
conservation budget.
What's the total number?
700,000 or about, it's a little under that.
Oh,
but
but
it's-
for the appliances?
No, for the appliances, it's 300,000 is what we're budgeting for.
No, all rebates are 300,000, but applying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Appliances is
Oh, yeah,
less than
there
that.
is.
I think I
Okay,
added
there are
it
some-
was like 50,000 or something.
it was a little bit less, yeah,
Mm.
Does look like there's a few.
yeah.
That was gonna be my, I mean, was my question is like, why not take out more of the appliances where, because this report, like the carbon,
And the reason not to is because it's good with our customers and it's not driving any.
significant spend.
Yes.
But I mean, just like we are increasing incentives for things, but this carbon-based incentive report showed also that you should be decreasing incentives for a lot of these appliances because they're not in scale with the benefits you get from them. So that was the other takeaway here.
So, and we'll keep tracking to the net zero one. So these are consistent with net zero. And so we're trying to still have the customer goodwill portion of it as
Yeah.
well.
Well, I have a question about the rebate amount because I haven't bought a washing machine or a clothes dryer in a long time and I don't know how much they cost, but is $50 enough to get somebody to buy something that's more efficient?
I mean, I had to replace a dryer. We had a gas dryer and I looked at the price of electric dryers. I said, I'm not buying an electric dryer, so I just replaced the gas dryer.
Oh.
It's gonna pay the.
Yeah, I would say, if you were gonna do just picking on the dryer, make a meaningful rebate to go with a heat pump dryer, right? There's only so many things you can do with an electric clothes dryer to get that different from an Energy Star is lower heat, longer runtime. The heat pump dryer moves the needle in efficiency. So if we're gonna make changes to that, I would say you do a bigger rebate to bridge the gap for the person making the choice to go to a heat pump dryer. And, picking on that and.
But I think from a cost difference perspective, I don't think anybody is gonna be, like, the rebate, regardless of how much we increase it to go to a heat pump dryer. Looking at like 50% increase on cost compared to a traditional dryer, and
I haven't looked at,
from 50 to 100 is still not gonna be
Well,
in a dent.
well, that's what the incentives are. When I think of an incentive or a rebate, or I would say incentive versus rebate, incentive is the function of, right, we're looking to make things more efficient, and the incentive is to bridge that gap. To say, if the heat pump is the better way and it's more, the incentive bridges that gap to doing business as usual, gas, electric, basic dryer, and just picking on the dryer in that aspect. And I don't know if 100 or 250 is the number. That's what the incentive should do, is to.
I mean, we could think about reducing the number of appliances where, we're spreading the smaller rebates around and just concentrate them in certain types of appliances. So instead of having 10 or 12 different appliances where we have $50 rebates, perhaps we can increase the rebate on certain ones that are moving the needle.
Well, I think one thing to consider too with kind of the changes is, I think one bit, we're lowering the solar, and then we're completely revamping the heat pump rebates. We're taking out gas. I mean, I think maybe, it's kind of funny, but maybe save some stuff for next year. You know what I mean? Like, where we're doing a couple big things this year. And we can see how it plays out as far as how is it going to, because, we have projections about how this is going to impact the budget as far as the heat pump with the insulation. Maybe we see where these changes go, and then, we can kind of mix and match with some of the appliances and things. And as Pete had mentioned, it's really small dollar amounts, but I can totally understand trying to, if even being small dollar amounts, we want to practice what we preach and kind of try to incentivize people to go that extra step. But maybe the cost is still a little bit too great, and we couldn't offer a rebate maybe that would be advantageous for somebody to kind of go that way. Obviously it's up to you guys.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is some of the technologies that have the larger incentive amount will also have a federal incentive coming. So they'll be layering. Which will probably make more people take. I was wondering whether the amount we've reserved for heat pumps will be enough when the federal incentives actually fully roll out, because there'll be more interest, I think. Like that's going to drive more.
I think one of the things that we're trying to drive the behavior of this year was, again, add the insulation in, and try to have that extra layer where if you do go all fossil, if you get off of fossil, that's a big, because, we've done over 200 heat pump rebates so far, and only less than 5 have gone off of fossil fuel entirely, so trying to add that layer of incenting them, in certain cases to go up.
I mean, if we do see a huge uptake, we might need to make further shifts.
Yeah, we can.
Money, right?
Yeah.
For heat pumps. So it's like.
And part of what we use this stuff for every year lately is that it's data. So, so we're tracking all this stuff at a much greater level now to see where the trends are, like what works and what isn't, and what's popular and what isn't. When we added heat pumps, we've had over 200 of them we've incented so far, probably closer to 300, isn't it, Joe? I forget what the number is.
I think, it's probably mid 200s if I had to guess. It's just from memory.
Jen, to your point, I just looked up the induction stove from the IRA funds. Low income is up to 840. Middle income is half of that, so 420, and then high income is 0. So there may be an uptick in that. And that opens up, the induction opens up in 2024.
I wanted to ask a question or two about verification. So on the insulation, are we going to require that project occur literally at the same time as the heat pump install? Are we going to give like a 6-month grace period, or how do you envision that requirement
I think we're only gonna do one post audit, so they're gonna have to put they're gonna have to put in for the rebates together. We will allow time in between, but you can't get credit for it if you put in a rebate A here and then 7 months later put in a different rebate. You know what I mean? You have to put them in together because we only want to do one post audit.
Okay.
So,
I mean, because usually you're talking with two installers about,
right,
right, two different projects that you're trying to like
layer together.
layer
Yeah,
together. So
yeah.
they're not gonna happen on the same day.
No, but you could sit on your slips until you have both things done and then put it in, then we could do one post audit.
Okay, got it. But within a reasonable period of time.
Yeah, I
assuming
mean, well, we can look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
10 years later, you.
yeah,
Within a year?
huh? Within a year, I would think it would be reasonable,
Okay.
yeah.
And then for the fossil fuel replacement, how are you verifying? Are you literally requiring them to remove the existing systems? Okay. That one's gonna be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. If you
That's-
want the highest level, yeah. I mean, if it,
It's a requirement,
Right.
not saved too.
yeah,
Okay.
if you are removing gas, we'll know about it.
Right.
If you're removing oil, we'll want to verify, so. But yeah, we believe that Mass Saves the same, like, if you're completely getting off, you have to show us that you're
Yeah,
off.
no, Mass Save has a, I think it's part of a post audit that happens. And we could have, and I don't know if it's something that could be verified through, building inspection, right? Because there's gonna have to be a wiring inspector, I don't know if we can rely on other entities, or we require a post audit.
We'll just do, for those where it's such a big number, we'll make sure our auditors do the post audit.
And for the solar adjustment, can you tell us what the payback would change to from if we go from the 120 to the 80?
So that's not something I have on hand, but I can look at that.
And that's gonna be dependent on
The system, yeah.
system.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a model and I ran it, it went from 5 years to 7 in mine, but I'm just curious whether, like, what you're seeing I just want to kind of make sure it's still reasonable.
I'm sure
Customer
it's,
isn't-
I mean, I don't think our data would be any different. It's good. We're cutting it by 1/3, so we would add 1/3 of the time, I would
Yeah.
guess. So,
I just wanted to kind of validate where, yeah.
And, panel costs have come down, so it's,
Right.
yeah,
it's probably back to the 7, like we were targeting
Going
7
back
or 8,
a few years
and,
ago.
which
And
makes
the
sense.
federal incentive is higher than it was
right.
thought to.
So from the customer's perspective, yeah,
But that's picking up some of
their payback would cover,
Yeah.
cover some of that.
Yeah. Okay.
But from our side, if it was just based on our rebate, it's gonna go up 1/3 of the time, so.
So Pete, what are you asking for in terms of the vote right now? Just the budget itself or?
We're gonna ask just for the budget, but we wanted to have this discussion because it's a piece of the budget. So I guess that we can still tweak a couple of these other things because they're gonna have minimal impact, but the real key is, are we gonna hold the energy in the next piece, the budget, we're carrying it as holding the energy conservation charge constant. So we can tweak a little bit of this if we want to keep it, to hold the 0.7 of a cent. Cause that's what's in the next part. So when you vote the budget, you're voting the 0.7 of a cent, but we wanted to have this discussion first, so.
Yeah. But, so seeing that we're well over budget because of the EV chargers, what do we do to make up for that overage?
So some of it was grant funded, right?
Yeah, so we're still about 150 over. I think we're just gonna have to eat it in the capital. I mean, some of it was capital that we spent on the
I mean,
building.
it was an opportunity to grab that grant funding, so it's kind of, it pays for itself. I mean, it's.
Yeah, well, and then, so that brings me to another question. And maybe I'm supposed to know this, but why are the EV chargers being charged against the energy conservation budget?
Cause that's where it's an incentive to do, we have the chargers, it's part of our incentive program, so we've kept all that stuff in the same bucket. So the part of our rebate program is those chargers that we give to customers. So that EV is all part of the same thing.
Oh, that's what these charges are? These aren't the charges at the head of the lake?
Well,
No,
we
well, clarifying the plant. not electrifying the plant, what are you, putting the chargers in the plant?
No, it included all the capital costs with EV, the total, everything is in there. What we spent for the head of the lake, what we spent for the garage, what we spent on the charges that we give away. The entire EV spending was in this. That's what we carried in here. So everything was, now we got 145 of the spending back.
Right.
So, but we still overspent in EV. But again, we're probably gonna eat that in other parts of we'll eat the rest of it in terms of capital, because you could argue that it was an investment in the building and it was an investment in the infrastructure. So, but we try to show. It used, when we went to this form of the budget where we went to the cents per kilowatt hour, we brought all those things under the same umbrella. So that they were all scattered all over the place. So it was a lot easier to bring them all under one window. So EV stuff, solar stuff it's in this bucket. So. But again, where we're over, it's explainable why we're over, and therefore that's why we're not saying we should go chase that. You know, we just know why Joe's notes basically saying we know why we were over, and these are like one-time hits. So we're not worried about it.
I think I understand your question.
Mhm.
It like, those seem like infrastructure investments
Yeah.
as opposed to customer,
Efficiency, expense.
rebates or.
Well, again, that's why we're not saying that we should use this
Programs.
year's budget to reclaim that. We're saying we're starting with zero for the next year, but we just wanted to account for everything we've spent.
Right.
So if we were saying,
So going forward, if
we're still
there,
gonna charge it in the same place because it's part of the incentive, but. So we're tracking all the charges in one place, but again, if we were to make another capital investment on something. We would call it out and we know what it was, so that, it's explainable, and if we're over, it's explainable why we were over. So this is explainable, we were over by a certain amount, but. We know why, and it was these capital investments, that's why we're saying it was a one-time thing, but that's why we're aware of it, so.
I feel like this should definitely go in the capital budget.
yeah,
Well, that's what I was thinking, but so aside from the EV charger rebates that we give. The head of the lake, those are ours. But the other charges really belong to the town. So are those charges that the town owns, are those also in this $299 or whatever? Or-
No, those are the towns, and they were installed 3 years ago before we did any of this.
So it's just the ones that we own at the head of the lake.
Is this just an accounting?
Yes.
'Cause
It's an accounting.
this is more of accounting, so you're saying the 150K that we're over in the EE budget.
For this year.
For this year is being covered under capital, but we're just putting the chargers, the EV chargers charge to the budget is in the EE space, but we're really covering it in capital expenditure.
but it's a mix of the.
It's under this
rebates
umbrella
and
because
the-
it more closely resembles you know what I mean? We have the residential EV it is an EV charger. So that's the reason why it was put, captured that way.
At the end of the day, we fully spent
Yeah.
the 700 grand on other stuff, but we just capture all the costs in the same bucket.
Yeah.
We won't even have to show it to you next time if you don't want us to, but we spent nine.
I don't know, that's the answer.
No.
I guess the way that it's represented also in this pie chart makes it seem like,
Well, the other thing we do have to remember, and it is worth noting, is that the EV chargers that we put out there are a huge loser. And so it is partially incenting the use of EVs because we're never gonna get our money back on them. And so that piece we need to know also. So it keeps it highlighted, the fact that like the capital investment we made for the head of the lake, and like we talked about 15 cents and we did some analysis on that. And if we went to $2.49, might get our money back. So it's the 15 cents wasn't that, it's not really and we did some research and like the average for the peak charges along the 128 strip is more like 69 cents. So, we just need to realize that it is kind of an incentive because we're doing these things to incent the greater good of EVs. It fits in this bucket. It's not an asset that's gonna necessarily benefit the system. We're doing it more in this energy efficiency world than we're doing it for a project that we would do for infrastructure. Cause it's an investment that we're not necessarily gonna get back.
It's an investment on behalf of customers. Is that what you're
Our
trying to say?
customers in this energy efficiency world, right? Where it's within this bucket of spending.
When you think of a classic, I guess, infrastructure investment, you think of it, increases reliability or. something like that.
Right, yeah, I mean,
Resiliency.
we're installing switchgear or wires or pipe or conduit or. In this case, we're installing it for a completely different reason. And we're not saying that the reason's wrong. We're just saying this is the bucket it fits in.
Matches
Yeah,
most.
well, a lot of the programs we talked about tonight, right, are around carbon reduction, right?
Yeah.
So that's the shift, right? We're trying to incent people to move to reduce their carbon usage. What better product or better program is EV charging has a direct impact on carbon reduction, right? So that's what we're focusing on. So if you look at kind of pulling all the programs together that fall under that bucket. I mean, EV vehicles, EV charging falls under the carbon reduction bucket, which was what we're trying to strive for in the program.
And the shortfall, right? Like, because we had, what was the budget for 23? It wasn't 952. It was,
It was 696.
696. So there's a shortfall, right? Part of that was covered with the 145K grant. The other shortfall came out of our capital
Infrastructure.
Okay.
Dollars, yeah.
So it's just, I guess I get the way we're representing it, and I get that it looks disproportional, but we're not charging more in the EE rate for
Right.
next year to make up for that, because it was covered with capital funds. Did I get that right?
Yeah, it was covered with funds elsewhere. Yep.
So there's no EV charger rebates in the $249,000 rebate incentives.
There was the charges we give away.
Oh, but I thought that was all part of the 299.
Did he put it in separate buckets?
I think that's in the Voltrek bucket, because I think that's where we buy the chargers from them, so. Because we did our.
So the 299 was the other stuff, you're right.
Wait, okay, so say it again. So what?
So the charges we give away was in the Voltrek bucket, the purple one.
Okay,
36,000, yeah.
okay, so there are no EV rebates in the rebates and incentives.
Is that just the one that's for the 299? That's just the infrastructure,
That's the head of the lake.
the head of the lake, and the ones in the garage?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess while we're at it, what's in the MWIC programs bucket?
So part of it's administration and part of it's the stuff around home energy, our home energy audits come under that because we use their service for that. So
Yes.
The MWIC program Net Zero is a whole suite of products and we participate in some of those suites. So we participate in connected homes. We participate in the home energy audit portion. So we have a few things. So that's what's within the.
Yeah. For the,
You got the order to page?
no, well, I don't need it. I have it up online, but I was confused why my numbers weren't lining up. I'm like, oh, and because I was gonna write on
How
it.
did it end up out of one book? That's weird. I'm gonna tell Maureen. She
Yeah,
did
what
it out of one. How she found page 47 and pulled it out, I have no idea.
So, I'll just state my closing opinion on this, and you may or may not agree, and I understand that. I still see decarbonization investments as a capital budget line item. You can label it as decarbonization investments. It can have different goals, but I think it squarely belongs in there. I don't think we would ever want to set an EE charge with those kind of capital investments included. So I want to just, I think we're all in agreement on that. I just want to be careful that that wouldn't get rolled into like an EE charge line item, which I don't see you doing.
No, but we wanted to show the spending somewhere.
You can show the spending. What I would recommend is in the future, having like from the capital budget, the other decarbonization investments line item just somewhere else on this page and not like rolled into what I see as the subcomponents of the EE charge.
Mhm.
So that is my recommendation, is to just break it out so that it's very clear that, yes, there are other expenditures happening outside of that that support all of this, right? But it's not to be used to calculate the EE charge.
Yeah, to your point, right? It skewed the pie chart.
Well,
A lot.
well, it could, and in the future, we could make additional investments like this one, which have a really good reason to be made, right? There's a really good reason for us to do that. There are lots of benefits and we see that, but I agree, like it's, yeah.
Mhm.
For
And
different
then,
purposes.
but there's another similar accounting issue that I noticed that I might as well throw out now, because I was just gonna mention it at the end, which is when I was looking through the warrants, I saw that the office building maintenance expense is where the new trees that have been planted seems to be charged. And I was just curious if I'm right, because I think in warrant 19, there were all these expenses for Riley landscaping, which is I know it's the new trees, because I could tell by,
Mhm.
I know that it all happened like last month or whatever. And they're all being charged to planned maintenance. And I just wondered if they should be charged someplace else.
I'd have to look at that. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay,
But some of those Riley bills may or may not have been for,
The
like
planting.
fall clean, yeah, plantings around here, and we did some work down there.
I did notice some guys out here yesterday doing
It's office down there, so it could, I'd have to look to, yeah.
And what were the guys doing out here today?
This was the solar stuff I was talking
Oh,
about.
that was, okay,
Yeah, that's the beginning of that project.
excellent.
I mean, and I think similar to that comment, like we have solar here, right? But if we had, for example, capital costs for the solar on the roof,
Yeah,
that wouldn't appear in the.
yeah, that's a
charge. So,
completely separate.
right, so that's like the same kind of thing, right? Where we're making an investment
Yep.
for like some other program that we're doing and it's a capital expense. Yeah.
I agree, Jen. It doesn't sit right with me to have it in the same pie chart and kind of
Okay,
in the same. Because it does appear as if it is contributing to that spend.
Yeah, and overall, I agree with keeping the charge the same this year. And so if that's the only thing that you need us to vote on.
right, and we can come back to you with, based on the feedback, Joe and I can look at a little bit about the clothes dryers and the induction stove stuff, like, we'll look a little more. I'll definitely call Craig in Belmont to see how he verifies. And, we can do it, and we could play with that within the $700,000 budget, 696, I think it is. So that's fine.
Yeah, I don't want to add additional administrative burden for that.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's not potentially, we, look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with holding the spending level, and I think we'll see in early 2020, like throughout 2024, what happens with the federal incentives, and it could be,
Right.
the programs could look, the response could look different, and
Right.
and we'll need to come back and talk about it.
Yep.
Okay, all right, well, is there a motion then to,
So I think we had this line item in the overall budget, if you vote the overall budget,
okay.
yeah.
Fair enough, okay, so we don't need a vote. Okay. Perfect. All right, well, then if there's nothing else, we can go on to the general. Budget discussion.
So we had sent out an email, the folks received it, but.
Yeah, there were some changes.
Yeah, I'm ready to give, I'm gonna hand out a paper copy. It's one change on the electric budget. So, yeah. And there's the small page that you see on top is how it was originally presented in the board packet. And then the large page, so you can read it, is how, the revised or how we're gonna go moving forward.
Thank you.
You've batting 1,000 today until this mistake.
Yeah, and it's just something as simple, it was as simple as a sign. I mean, that's all it was. And I copied and pasted, and then I changed the formula, to make it easier. And every time I try to make it easier, it doesn't. But anyway, so if we look at the small page, so let me back up a second. So two budgets that we're gonna go through. There's an operating budget and then a capital budget. We're gonna do the operating budget first. The first up is the electric operating budget, which is this page I just handed out. Let me just go over the two small changes. On the small page in green writing, I kind of drew a line through. The 1,071,419 in brackets should not have been in brackets, because that's avoided cost. And that was the only mistake. I had it in brackets. So I changed that. And what that did, now, if you look all the way down to the bottom, is I had originally budgeted a 1,000,006 loss, which I would never do that. So that's kind of how I picked it up. And the loss was 1,000,006, but now once the change from the energy pocket avoided cost kind of flows through, that's just math going down to the bottom. So we're budgeting, and that's in the out year in FY 26. So now we're budgeting a surplus of $500,000. So that's just that change. Okay. So going through, so is everybody good on that change? Everybody kind of understand my hiccup there? Okay. So, did you have a question, Tom?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's-
All right, so the way that this is presented, the way the operating budget is presented, there's historical 3 years, which should, like on the left, FY 20, 21, and 22. And in the green box, this is the actual performance. The green highlights is actually last year, FY 2023, which Zach had kind of gone over this evening as well. So under the actual results in the green, that's FY 23, and you can kind of see the changes back and forth in the green boxes. The revenue came in actual versus budgeted. We were a little bit under on that, and then the costs as well were a little bit higher on actual due to commodity costs. So the revenues were up, but the costs, the power costs actually came in right around purchase power. Actually came right around to where we budgeted. So that was good. The gross profit, on the other hand, was actually up a little bit, had to be up a little bit compared to the budget, because we had bumped the rates up a little bit. And the other item that I wanted to kind of share was on the pension and OPEB box down the bottom, it's in red. That number that isn't really again, that's what Zach was talking about. That number isn't really actual yet until we get the finalized number for the pension. So that's kind of one of the open items in the green columns. But so that's kind of a look back at last year. And again, it's just kind of a rehash of what Zach had said. The budget going forward, all right, the 3 columns to the right of the green. So what we're primarily concerned about, this evening is on the budget is the FY 2024, which is next year's budget, which is what we're going to be asking for, looking for a vote on this evening is the FY 24 budget. We do have a forecast for 25 and 26 that are more or less of, kind of where we think we're going to go, but we're going to kind of focus in the gold column for, for tonight. So we had the revenues are actually, and these are actually costs that I received from MWIC. I put in a couple of calls to them. We kind of painstakingly went, did some back and forth on this, and both the the revenues, the grand total of the revenues all in, we're coming in at 29,958,000 roughly. It's about 25, about a quarter of the way down the page. And so roughly $30 million for revenue. And power cost, which is, it's about 13 or 14% off, or a 13 or 14% decrease in the in revenues, and a corresponding 13 or 14% decrease in purchase power costs, which is at 16,300,000 dollar amount there for purchase power. So the revenues are, we're rolling back the revenues by around 13%, and the same thing with the purchase power costs as well. Those are going down because of the projection of MWEX projections for this year. So that's kind of good news. So that helps. The generator, again, under the purchase power costs, you can
Good question.
go.
How often do we go out for bid or purchase power? How many,
So
how often?
Our model is different than.
Yeah,
Okay.
than
yeah.
So we have a portfolio where we own some of the assets. We have intermediate term contracts and we have long-term contracts. So the only stuff we would go out for is, we set a target for where, going into a given month, where we want to be covered up to, and it's typically 75 or 80%, depending on the month, how much we want to be exposed to the open market. So what MWEX going out on the open market to get bids or short-term coverage is just on the portion of our portfolio that's short of that 80%.
Okay.
So we have all these units we own. We own a piece of Millstone, a piece of Seabrook, Stony Brook, blah, blah, blah. These add up to here. And then we have intermediate term contracts for certain things that add up to here. And then we have these things, and some of them are seasonal. So, but what we do is we say, MWEX gonna make a presentation next month. We didn't have them tonight,
Okay.
but at the end of the day, we have a committed portfolio that has a curve to it. But then we have a goal of being 80% covered every month. So what they're going out for only is our
That's,
delta for that
okay.
slice.
And those
Gotcha.
contracts are in varying maturities. They keep
Yeah,
rolling.
yeah,
So it's
layered.
it's
Yeah,
a layer
all
that's
that.
staggered.
And right now, actually, for this winter, I think if you remember last month, Mark kind of locked us up on the gas side at
Yep.
that 80% level
Yep.
for the whole winter. So we're already we're only gonna be exposed to the market at a very small amount.
Yeah.
On the electric side, we're in a similar situation. The numbers are a little bit different, but Emma could go through it a little more detail, but these numbers are based on that. So yeah, we're a little bit different than the IOUs who go out twice a
Yeah.
year for their whole portfolio.
We're at,
The
subject
market's
to the market
Sure.
and the whoever shows up.
Which is, if you take a step back, that's part of the reason that we're able to be like a third cheaper.
Uh-huh.
Because we have the ability to secure these resources for longer periods of
Yep.
time, and some of them we even own. We own Berkshire Wind.
Yep.
Our share of it, we own Stony Brook, we own Millstone, we own, all these projects that come together and are a core piece of our portfolio.
Mhm.
And then they'll come to us sometimes with the opportunity to buy, and they'll share some of the stuff with you, but we have a project that we just signed for, and that will have some green, it was actually the nuclear thing that we talked about a few months ago, that we have the opportunity to buy into a nuclear project continuing on after 30, and we'll get non-carbon emitting credits as part of that as well. So we've signed like a 5-year deal that starts in 29 for that,
Okay.
so layering all these things in,
Yes, that's kind of the strategy. And like, Pete said, he'll, I think it's Justin will be in next month, and
Okay.
they'll be, giving us a much more in-depth on that.
Quick question on the community relationship and advertising seems much higher than historical and future
Yeah,
budgeting. I was just wondering what's,
it was the bike path.
okay.
A big driver was the bike path down here, and there was some hangover, I think, from Albion Street might have been on there, or some streetlights or something, but the big driver was, the bike path down here.
Yeah,
And
that
again,
project.
it was a one-off. It came up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know that makes total sense because that just popped up.
So work on the bike path went in here.
The modifications we had to do to North Ave.
To move
Move the
the
pole
We had to
line.
move all the pole line over.
So maybe that would be a good place for the trees. If it was in fact charged to the building maintenance, maybe it could go to community relations.
Yeah, I'd have to look, yep, yep.
And marked on the same category there, general administrative expenses. In 23, we had budgeted 160 and came at 436. What's driving that?
Which one was that again?
The general admin, the general administrative
Admin.
expense,
Expenses. Because we're also budgeting for 360.
60, right, so some of that is, we brought in a new. No, I know what that is, so this is, okay, so the inventory, the inventory adjustment that we did this year, we did a one-time, we took a one-time inventory adjustment. We had a lot of inventory that it was both older inventory, Elton, and it was inventory that had come in, and we didn't charge it to a specific job. We didn't know where it was going to go. So the auditors actually made us put it as an admin expense rather than charging it off to a 593 account or something like that. So that's where that went, because it didn't, some of this inventory didn't end up being hung on a pole or used in maintenance or things like that. So that was
And some of it we took out of inventory,
Some-
retired it, right?
some of it we took out of inventory.
Yeah.
The continuing on piece is, because again, you made the point that it continues on to 360, 370, 381. That's, I normalized that based on that, actual, and it probably shouldn't have been. We can see how or where that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I had my eyes on that as a one-time hit. Yep. We can keep an eye on that. So, yeah, so the only other thing in the gold column, that I wanted to mention, kind of back up top, is on the generators and the battery, under the power costs. It was tracking at over, on the generators, it was tracking at over $1 million. And the battery storage was tracking around 250. That one didn't really change, but the generators actually, the debt was rewritten on that as well. And it pretty much cut the debt service in half on that, which was a big win on that. So we had what did we write? We rewrote that on the building. What was it, last year or 2 years ago? 2 years ago. And we had a big win on that one as well.
Right,
Yeah.
we shortened I don't know if you remember one of the things he was saying is about our debt is gonna all be expired within 10 years.
Right,
We've accelerated the pay down on the generators, and so the generators, I think, will be paid off in 6 years.
something like, yeah.
5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
The building will now be paid off in 8 years, I think.
Yeah.
The biggest debt that will remain is the Wallace substation, because we financed that over a 20-year
20
life.
years, yeah.
And there's one other thing.
Battery we have.
Yeah,
We have,
yeah,
I think that's it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
so, but our average debt is gonna be gone in 10 years.
Yeah, and our weighted average, debt, interest rate on the debt is it's in the low 3%,
Yeah.
which is,
Oh, really?
yeah, it was huge. I mean,
It was pretty nice.
Remember to do it.
And it's fixed. I remember.
it is fixed,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Because we got out of the variable into the, which
Right,
now
when we
looks.
refinanced the building to 8 years, we
we
also
said.
refinanced it at
Because it
fixed rate.
was,
It was a
it was a 5-year renewal.
5-year variable
We got out of
rate.
that.
Yeah, so
We stepped off that train at the right, it just,
we got off right at the right
Yeah.
time, yeah,
Pete likes to say it's his genius, but.
yeah, it was.
we just-
So why are we paying off the debt? Why don't we just lend money?
Yeah, right, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta spend money to make money, right, Jack? All right, and, yeah, so that was the last thing I wanted to go over in the gold column on FY 24 budget for the electric piece. And the gas piece is in my book. Shuffle, right? So the gas piece, again, it's set up, very similar, and the other thing in the electric budget, it does have the 696,000, conservation, so, on the gas fund, again, the budget, the operating budget, it's set up the same way. You have a couple of this.
Yeah.
Everybody good? That's on the right page?
Yeah, it just seems like the bottom.
Yeah, I think it's cut off.
We're on the little one. Oh,
Well, no, it's the big one, but it's cut off at the total admin and general.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't print out correctly.
Yeah.
Hang on.
That's where Tom's extra page went.
Maybe, so.
I don't have it.
The sheet with the real numbers.
Yeah, these are the real numbers.
yeah,
I gotta keep those in my pocket. So the top.
It went to you,
You missed one page.
top page-
the last page. I don't know why.
The top page is the electric budget, which
I was saying maybe it went into his.
we just hit the electric budget. So if you turn to the back page, it has the full gas budget. The back page of that has the full gas budget.
Thank you.
This is how Pete tries to trick me. He says you only present half the budget.
It's looking great.
Yeah, no,
Congrats.
it's like, yeah, right?
What is this, all the cost now?
Yeah, no, that's what we get rid of, right?
If you drop a third of the page. it's
Yeah,
the
we
cost
drop a
side.
third of the budget.
Amazing. before
That's
the
what-
cost came in.
I don't know why I didn't think of that years ago. So again, yeah. So
Then
again,
you'd actually have money. You could stop saying we have no money.
I know, right? So, yeah,
Oh, yeah, you can see the net loss here from, yep,
so.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. So again, set up, structurally set up the same way. You've got 3 historical years, FY 19, 21, 22 for reference. In the green box, up top in the little red box up there, the revenues came in right about, a little bit under budget, but as you can see, the purchased gas down the bottom was a little bit over 11 million based on a budget of 8.5. So that kind of is the situation that we've talked about, and it's really no surprise. And that's, again, that is the primary driver behind, and again, if you just, like what you were saying, Jen, if you go all the way down to the bottom line, that's what drives the $2.8 million loss. So, and again, not final because of the pension numbers. So that's what's gonna be presented once the pension number is done. So the gold column again is the same. So we're looking at the gold column, which is our budget for the gas division for this year for FY 2024. It's up, it's up over actual last year because we didn't budget enough. And so the revenue is budgeted up a little bit over $1 million on the total energy revenues. And the purchased gas, and again, this $9.1 million on the purchased gas it's a little bit over last year's budget, but it's under by about 2 million, obviously. It's under the actual for last year. So, that's roughly a 18-20% reduction in purchased gas. And this number, again, Mark Roberts had presented last month. And, so that's, we painstakingly went through this both last month in public session. And, again, there's a lot of, footwork that's, done between, Pete and I and Mark, on this to dial that in as close as we can. So, so again, that's the primary driver on this budget is, the budgeted revenue and the budgeted cost of gas. So, So that's where we're at, on this budget and, we're budgeting, bottom line, a thin profit and we're gonna keep our eye on it, day to day, month to month and, we're gonna let you guys know how we make out on it. So as we go, so that's where we're at on the operating budgets.
So is the net income or loss accumulated across the years?
So you can kind of do the math, but each year is a standalone column, you know what I mean? So you can, if you go back to like, say FY19, you can say, okay, on the gas fund, we had a pickup of 873,000 and then five, you know what I mean? And you can kind of sum it across if you want. But the way it's presented is standalone, yeah.
Do we have, because I'm just looking at the electric side and we've been had a net profit of like $500,000 for pretty much as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
So do we ever report or can we see a cumulative? Like, where does that go?
It would be on okay. If you look back to the audit, there is a net assets. I left my audit up on the, oh, here it is.
That's.
Yep. So if you look on page 7. Okay. Page 8. Total net position. Okay, is for 2023 would be 36,426,251 all the way down the bottom. That is accumulated from 1890 something. Down there, bottom of page 9.
Oh, none.
Yep.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Yeah, so that would be each year's $500,000 profit, $1 million loss, all of that. So that's the accumulated and how that 36 million is actually broken out is if you look at it, the next equation up there, it says net position in bold, net invested in capital assets. So we have 38 million invested in capital assets. We have a little bit restricted funds, and then the unrestricted portion is actually a deficit of 2.5 million.
Mhm.
Okay, so
And
that's
this-
where the accumulated profits over the years have been invested.
Okay, and this equates to the 3 months of cash on hand? No.
No,
Oh, so net position is not related.
correct.
Okay.
It's accumulated from like I said, from day one, from like 1890 something when we,
Right.
yeah.
So we have these assets that we add to and depreciate off of
Yeah.
each year. So
Yeah.
that's one of the line items. And then there's the net cash, so as Mark was saying, the 500 extra we had this year goes against the $1 million we lost 5 years ago. And so
Yeah.
that's,
How I used to talk about this, or I used to teach this is kind of a this is equity. Think of it as the equity in your home. You know what I mean? Like that's what's left over.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Just that, the unrestricted or the whole total net position?
The total net position, some of which, Jack, is restricted.
Right.
Yep.
And the other thing is,
Mhm.
we mentioned earlier that I think it's this line on the gas, but I'm sure it's on the electric too, of this OPEB, that was going to decline in future years.
Again, that's gonna be based on a but yes,
So that would,
potentially could.
that the net income,
well, so in this, on our reports here, pension benefits and OPEB are all
It's all
together.
one line item.
All one
Yeah.
line item. The OPEB piece of
Piece
that
of it
might
may-
decrease,
Right.
but,
Right.
but pension and other benefits might go up,
but
so.
that decrease is not reflected yet, I guess is my point.
Right.
Correct.
We don't have the
Correct.
actuarial look at that, but we know that the other two pieces will continue to go up.
Yeah.
On the distribution expense category, when I look into the total, it seems to, from where the actuals were to what we're budgeting is about almost $200,000 or close to that going up. What's the driver behind it?
I normalized it back to actual.
Are we looking at electric or gas?
Yes.
Gas.
120 of it is that, it's a sign. 120 of it is that, because that's a $40,000. So that's where that line item, one of those line items is where overheads are allocated into the mains and service expense. So that's a $46,000 actually debit and a credit, it's a credit actually in an expense line item. So, and that's where the overheads are actually allocated. So we don't know where the overheads are actually, how the allocation of the overheads are actually gonna fall or break out. So we kind of budget for the worst.
Okay.
So that explains 120 of it. So, yeah. And the rest was just normalizing it to actual, like I took the 276 and 268 and I made it 280.
I think it's that customer installation expense that has jumped the highest from what was budgeted last year.
Yeah, yeah. So I budgeted 160. So again, I normalized that up to 240. That's testing the meters, that's getting out and getting into the houses, and that's getting
We're
meters
also-
outside,
yeah.
meters
Getting
outside.
meters outside,
A lot of,
yeah.
yeah,
To that bucket, okay.
That, you know, we've been staying focused on that. We've made great progress, so.
Yeah.
That also, there's a part of the year where we use a subcontractor work with us on those. Right now, we have our subcontractor, Boyson is helping do some of the services on Chestnut Street, moving those outside because there's a portion of the system when the capital was spent years ago and they put new main and they put new services, they only went to the curb and they left the steel that they tied to. So it really wasn't fully plastic. So we're going back now and on Chestnut Streets, there's about 4 or 5 streets that we got to go back to and finish the job of the conversion because it was done. I'll say half-assed. It was done half-assed. So.
Fair technical.
So.
Children are.
Yeah, so, and so that when we use Boyson for that stuff, that cost goes up a little bit, and we've used it in the past couple of years. One of the things we do with that is we meet with DPW and the engineering department the end of the summer. And we try to all right, what's the last, like, where are we? Are we in good shape with you? Are you in good shape with us? And what do we need to kind of touch up for the end of the year to make sure that we get some stuff done that, you know, like Chestnut Street, if you want to pave that next year, we want to get these services completed by this year. So we're completely out of there and it's yours for good. And so and last year we did a similar thing with, Cedar and Emerson and like that stuff. We brought Boyson in to help bang out some of those services with our guys. The contract we have is it's a digging contract, so our guys will work directly with him. So we have our service guys there with him just doing the digging, and the rest of our gas crew can keep working on the other streets.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a question about the forecasted energy revenues for gas and electric. They just seem to be just increasing incrementally.
Yep.
Over the next.
Yep. Because we don't,
years.
it's, yeah.
Kind of like.
It's a factor, it's usually a factor of 2.5% percent.
Mhm.
And the reason why I put that there is because it's the commodity cost game is gonna be anybody's guess.
It's kind of like a
that
placeholder
it
Okay.
doesn't come into focus, you know what I mean, until it's
real.
yeah.
Yeah.
Until we're into, so
Yeah.
next spring and summer and early fall, we'll be meeting with Mark again. That's why
Yeah.
we bring Mark and Emwark in for that real
And we
time.
talk to them throughout the year as
Yeah,
well. I
yeah.
mean, it's
You know.
not just
But-
yeah.
We need to carry a number, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's just carrying a
Yeah.
percentage increase.
I see. But even with like the gas ban and new development and, you expect increasing even, electrification and less
So,
Gas, do you kind of, does that factor in?
yeah, so, and
Your
again, maybe,
forecast?
maybe this is an old number, but you know, the ISO put out a 1.3% for electrification as a forecast, you know, going forward. So I just, I think I used 2.5, so I doubled it.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
it would be organic growth plus the growth
Okay.
electric, you know what I mean?
okay.
So
So,
hopefully we could start to see some impact of, on the gas side of
Yeah.
it going down. The reality is we haven't seen it
I
yet.
haven't
so-
seen it yet.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So you had said, what was it? 3% of the heat pumps installed were installed in gas customer.
It was like about a third, I think, yeah.
Mark, one question on the electric side. Forgot what month we made the adjustment for the line workers from a compensation perspective.
Yep.
Which bucket does that reflect that in here?
So, it would be in. Yeah, several.
Okay, so it's spread around. It's-
Substation, you know what I mean? Substation guys are in one bucket. There's distribution
Yeah, okay.
operations, you know what I mean? There's maintenance.
Especially the linemen actually get distributed over some of those expense categories as well as some of the capital categories.
Based on the work order system.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Sugar.
I shouldn't say hidden, but yeah,
I didn't have enough yesterday.
right.
Save your wrappers, they're in the, collecting them in the school.
Oh, I saw that.
So there, yeah.
We had 3 kids. Olivia Hayes, who's one of our office people, she had over 200.
Wow.
Really?
Great.
I had none.
We have 3.
You had 3 too?
Okay, I have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
And I know we're trying to wind down.
Haven't even got to the capital budget.
I know. So this net position.
Yep.
This is combined for gas and electric?
Yes, correct.
Can it be broken out for gas and electric separately?
It is in the monthly financials. The board packet. And
I mean, because I'm assuming
Yep.
like we keep them separate for purposes of billing our customer, right? Like our, how
absolutely,
we set our charges. right?
absolutely.
So they
the
are
finan-
separate accounts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and I keep it, because I keep, again, I keep records of a gas fund and an electric fund. But when it's presented, presented for financial statement, which Zach presented, it's presented as a department selling products.
Right.
That's just a financial statement presentation, how it's done. But yes, I keep separate records of it and if you would, you know, if you wanted to look in the, you know, like in the board packet, I mean, it's every month and it's what's called net position in Zach's presentation is just called equity, like I had mentioned and it's just again, it's just down the bottom retained.
Oh, and
earnings.
that's the cumulative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
got it.
So it's different. Same idea, different captions, you know what I mean? But
So
it's
sorry, what is it called there? I'm sorry.
equity, total equity, and it's broken down and again, you've got the investment in fixed assets.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yep, but that's the cumulative portion.
I'm just trying to get a sense of like
Yeah.
when we're in, like a situation, like now I'm assuming electric and gas look quite different. And so like how tight we are on our position for gas versus
Mhm.
electric is of interest. So my other question is with regard to the net income, we're trending higher for 2024 and 2025. Do you ever look at that number? It's projected to be large and think like maybe we should reduce our charge and our revenue assumptions in this?
Well, we look at it monthly to make
Yeah.
that call, yeah, but yeah, absolutely, and we're actually, to take that a step further, we're precluded from
Anything over 8.
anything, any profit, they call it a surplus, but any surplus of over 8%, so we're actually, you know, we actually have to work within those guidelines.
Yeah. I think-
So we can't.
Does it show in there annually? I mean,
In the financial statement?
No, it
It
shows
shows
in
in
the
the
DPU.
in the DPU report, it
Yeah.
shows, you know, the rate of return.
Yeah,
There is a disclosure in Zach's financial statements that says we have not exceeded it.
Yeah.
He just says they're okay, but he doesn't quantify it.
But that's like backward looking, not forward looking, like this kind of planning exercise that we're doing right here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we ever look at this number and say, well, this is higher than it's ever been in the past, and like that feels.
No, I mean, if it's, I mean,
We're budgeting for 735, you know what I mean, for 735,
Yeah.
732, you know what I mean? So
there's not a lot. Part of that needs to be budgeted.
there's not a lot of play. in
Yeah, there's
that
not a
number.
lot of play.
On a $60 million.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's, Yeah.
it's 1%.
yeah.
Right, but I mean, like, you could change the charge, right, and get less revenue. I'm assuming.
Right, but
Correct.
then you would lose money. So for the budgeting purpose, we,
For budgeting purposes, we, you know, we set it, we set a target, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And, but, yeah, to a point, I mean, we can, it's, you know, like, again, another Pete Dionism, it's a math equation. I mean, it's, you know what I mean? It's just
the key from the rate setting side is that we try to make sure, you know, we're gonna stay financially healthy and try to get back to the
Yeah.
3 months revenue
and
and,
not have customers beating down our door.
yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
kind of
Yeah.
the basic, you know, framework that we kind of go by. And it's,
Okay, and last question is, I'm not following why the expenses for generators, battery and energy park. And then the gross profits, like they match perfectly for the energy park, but they're different for the generators and batteries. Is that just because we're paying back the loan?
nope. So
Sorry.
the generator, yep. So let's take them one by one. The generator, this year again, in the gold column, that we're budgeting for is an expense of 518, okay? And the avoided cost, the generator avoided cost is 800,000, and that's based on an MWEC projection. So it's to the good, you know, 300,000-ish, whatever, okay? So that's the methodology behind budgeting that. Same thing with the battery. Again, it cost us 252, and the avoided cost is going to be 400, so we're 150,000 to the good. The energy park, and that's again in the gold column in the FY24, FY25, you know, similar numbers, similar outcomes. Again, the energy park, those are the 1,071,000. That's a projected debt service is going to come online in 2026, and there is going to be avoided cost. We just don't know what it is yet. Okay, it's again, the closer we get to the target, the more in focus it'll be. So I flat budgeted that
Okay.
to show it as a placeholder to show, hey, this debt service is coming, but it's going to be offset.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
the number is TB, essentially like will be
Yep.
updated, yeah.
But again, it's a number that's in the ballpark, and it's going to be on the order of 1,100,000, something like that. And we just, you know, and again, we backed it out and we showed it as avoided cost as well, because there's gonna be some, you know, some financial benefit to having the energy park, so,
I'm
Yeah.
clear now.
yeah. It's more for illustrative purposes than actual
Mhm.
money, you know what I mean?
Got it, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on the operating budget?
Any other questions on the operating budget? When are you chair on your?
That's fine.
When what?
Right,
Well,
so are people done then with questions on the operating budget? And if so, then we could go on to the capital budget. Capital budget.
Does everybody have a copy of the capital budget, and is it complete?
Yeah.
Before I start, you have both.
were.
You have the real one.
Already.
I know, does everybody have both pages, gas and electric. I know they fully printed,
It's
Yeah.
like,
okay,
Yeah, they're just up there.
all right,
Tell Maureen you
Last
threw her under
one.
the bus.
Upside down.
we're in the home stretch. Have a
I
sleep.
didn't notice, because I look at it on, like, it's easier for me to look at it.
Yeah.
Online.
All right. Gas budget, this is, gas budget for capital, again, it's set up a very similar way. The gold is what we're gonna kind of look at in this budget, so 2024, So it's laid out by the street division up top in the gold and you can kind of see, these are the streets that, we've got budgeted, Crosby, Evansville, you can read those in the gold. And the interesting thing that how we did this is in the green bars in both the 24 and in the 25 budget, we have, these are there's grant money that we got for these streets, Water Street, Crescent Otis, and then Bancroft, Columbia Siren out in, so we budgeted for those. The work is supposed to start, and it was good. Like I said, we got grant money
From the state?
out there.
The
from
federal.
feds. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's,
we got a $1.3 million
yeah,
grant.
there's-
The problem is that there's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah,
So we're hoping to be able to start the green portion of the.
Yeah.
So there's a grant that we've been awarded and then there's an additional grant we're applying for
Right.
onto the 26 timeframe, but Joe
Joe's been
and
good.
Joe and Raven have been working
Yeah.
heavily on the,
There's free money out there. You just gotta know where to look for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
so-
not free and it's
they've
not.
So, but yeah, no, they've done a bang up job, on ferreting out this, this free money. So, so those, so that's why the street budget is laid, this portion of the capital budget is laid out by by streets. And the remainder down the bottom going out to 2026 is, is the PHMSA grant. So that's, hopefully something will materialize there. On emergent mains, we've got, 350 and new service installs, that's, steady state at 100. And the new service installs are actually, are we budgeting, where are the meter? Oh, okay, meter replacements are down the bottom, move outs and all that. Okay, meter replacements. So for $1.9 million is the total for FY 24 on the gas budget for capital. And if we go out the next couple of years, $1.8 million and again $1.9 million on those streets.
Yep.
Okay,
So tell us about the portable LNG hold.
so the portable LNG is in case we need to resurrect that. I
Yeah, we're
think
putting up a-
we may need,
So we would know probably
Yeah.
a year or two in advance, but we would have to spend some engineering and operational dollars. That's why we're carrying a placeholder in case we.
yeah,
Because to get it going again, we would have to have inspections, we have to re-engineer our operating plan and refile it
Yeah.
with the DPU. So there's money we would have to spend. So we would potentially see this coming a year or two in advance, but we would have to spend some money on it. But so we're carrying a
Yeah.
placeholder just in case we have to do that. Right now, the physical equipment is there, but there would be a lot to do to get it to be able to be utilized again.
was it 3 or 4 year? Is it 4 or 5 years? How long has it been?
This will be our third winter we haven't used it.
Okay,
The timing of it is just in future years because we know we don't need it for 2024, but it could actually be eliminated from 2025 if we decide we don't need it.
Yeah,
yeah,
it would be, yeah.
So it's not like we don't have sign up for it.
correct.
No, we
Correct.
haven't committed. If it would be $0 next year, but we want to carry something in there just in case.
Are the grant projects part of the total there, Mark, or no?
No, this is, the grant funding isn't contemplated here.
So the green,
Oh, the grant.
those are they totaled up at the bottom or no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because we're gonna have to outlay it before
Yeah.
we get it back. We're
Yeah.
not sure how long it's gonna take to get it back.
The process to get it back and, yeah,
So we're gonna have to, we're carrying it because we know we're gonna have to outlay it.
yeah,
And then I don't know if we're gonna get it back next year, the year after, so we'd probably be able to factor in the refunds in later years.
So they'll come in as a,
Yeah, they'll be,
which would offset,
they'll be a positive.
yeah,
you
which
know,
would offset, yep.
But we don't have a real,
It's- Until it walks
There's
in the
free
door.
money out there, but you gotta
get
know where to
Until it
find
walks
it.
in the door, right,
Yeah.
right. That's-
is any of that grant, I mean, I'm thinking of some of the grant that Sharon has been working on, but is that sort of spent or 50% of it would be?
Cost share?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, there's a match.
If it-
And I want to say it's 50 cents on the dollar. Yeah.
Okay,
Joe, is that what it is on ours?
Is it
for
50/50?
smaller utilities, it might be 30 cents on the dollar.
What
What's
grant
the
is
portion of the capital cost that we need to spend? On
The
on the
match,
gas,
the
on the
grant
gas
match.
grant, do we have to spend 50% of it?
That I'm unsure of. I don't remember a cost share being part of it. I mean, there probably is, but I'd have to go back and check.
The PHMSA part, yeah, so again, that's why we're not carrying the credits yet.
And each grant is different.
We're
you know what I mean?
eligible to get up to 1.3 million. The reality is we're probably gonna get a little bit less because our costs are gonna be less than what we originally budgeted, we hope.
And even if there isn't a cost share, because sometimes the smaller grants don't have cost share, you have to spend in order to get reimbursed.
Right,
You
yeah.
don't, they don't just give you a pot of money.
Well, that's why we were saying we're carrying it,
Yeah.
we're carrying it as an outlay now, and we're not sure when the time we're gonna
Show
get
it
it
in the
back.
budget.
Yep. You spend money to make money.
there an opportunity to move forward with some of the ones scheduled for 25 and get all that money all at once or no?
No, because it's,
We only have one approval
yeah,
right now,
Okay,
so it's kind of incremental as we go. That's how it's gonna play out.
and then the other stuff in 26 is a completely separate location.
right, I was looking at it, yeah, the pending one.
Electric, okay. Line division, so Dave stuff. So this is underground and is line division, underground. Burns. The energy park, we're gonna be expending some cash this year and towards the end of the year. What is that 1,000,001 for, Dave? What was, like, what part, was it
The deposit on the,
generator? Okay,
we have to put a deposit on the generator,
okay,
and then the switchgear will have to do.
switchgear too, okay. And we're gonna carry that with pooled loan financing, you know, so it's, again, it's just kind of a placeholder and in and out.
Yeah, then we're doing we'll do some site work in 24.
Yeah.
So we have site work, we have equipment deposits and that's what the spending will be for 24.
Yeah, so the money, yeah, we're spending in 23 and 24 will be on site and preliminary work. The big stuff will start to roll in 25.
What did, it's the 23 that's deposits and stuff?
Oh, so we had, again, on the 23, we had projected that we'd be a little bit further along, so
Okay,
we did the 23 budget.
The 23, so that's kind of moved into 24.
Those, yeah, right.
Yeah, none of that was ever spent. We
Okay.
got held up and all that, so, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep. And on the substation by there's, you know, it's relay testing and whatnot that, and
Why does the BB testing and relay, that third line,
yep,
seem to go in waves like this? So it was 230 in 2022 and 23. And then, but then it's
Oh, that's-
projected to drop down again.
Yeah, so that's that line is testing relay protection upgrades. So we're doing a project right now to upgrade the relays. And then do a project with National Grid on the communications. So we're doing that project. And we're upgrading the relays on the main breakers. And we're reconfiguring the way the transfer bus works. So that's a big project this year that will, well, 24, that we're doing it now. It'll carry into 24. And then that will finish that project. Then we'll go back to a normal routine cycle of relay testing. But right now it's relay testing and relay and protection upgrades. So
Okay.
that's the reason.
okay. And Burn substation, we have 165,000 budgeted for wrapping that up. And then also into it's gonna spill over a little bit into 2025, which would actually be the rebuild, right?
Yeah,
Into
the park.
2025, yep, park.
before you move on from that one, why does it say completed in 2023?
Yeah, that should be 2025.
Oh.
Yeah,
The retirement of the station was completed in 23.
Yeah, this is
But there's still
the,
the remediation work.
this is the mitigation for the
Yeah.
contamination.
Yeah.
At 165 is for that.
Yeah.
And we budgeted for the Burns Park. The park itself is budgeted up above that, be over 2 years. Yeah, the actual contamination removal and abatement is 24.
yep. And the IT MIS budget is relatively flat. He mentioned his projects this evening. It's probably pointing some of the databases going on, the customer portal, which is January timeline, and facilities upgrades. We're looking at a new garage door, overhead door, and we budgeted for a dump truck and an SUV, an EV SUV, or high plug-in hybrid SUV in 2024.
The big number out in 26 is that's the delivery of our next bucket truck.
Yeah.
It's that
550.
far out.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to upgrade a couple of the other smaller vehicles between now and then, but the delivery on the bucket, we're just ordering now.
So this is
The hybrid full bucket truck is
the
26.
That is the upgrade.
Crazy.
2 years plus, yeah.
We have a lot of bold on it.
What was it before?
It was 14 to 18 months. That's what they used to be.
How long did it take to get route?
Getting
Over 2.5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the one we just
Well,
got
now
was
was-
well over 2 years.
yeah.
So, but traditionally, years ago, you could get a bucket in 14 to 16, 18 months. So
Yeah.
it's added more than a year
It's
extra now.
cold, yeah.
Yeah, so
The line that's Wakefield Ave, 34 KWDC solar.
What we doing?
Yep.
What was that was that really had expenditures in 2021, 2022, and 2023?
No, that was actually rebuilding that was rebuilding that substation yard, and now
Oh,
it's,
okay.
and now, there's a project
Since
that's
that's
kind of
substation. Got it.
still in thought
So
status.
this will be,
Yes, I've been.
this as, okay,
Yeah, but it's on,
really further out.
yeah, but it's on Wakefield Ave, so we kind of included it in the same line item, just to. Cause
Is
it's,
that what that?
That feels like a very high number for 2026 for that size, but anyway.
Well, it's not just the solar, we're talking about potentially doing a battery too,
Oh, battery, okay.
potentially.
Oh, okay.
It's a project that we wanted to put a placeholder in there for that project. Joe's also looking to see if there's any grant funds that we could get for a project like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the estimate is very precise.
Is,
Under facilities, upgrades and betterments, 2025 and 2026, you said those are all garage doors or?
No,
is that
the-
just for-
No,
One for
just-
next year.
No, the 88,000 for this year is only garage overhead doors, the 150 and 100 are other unforeseen.
Placeholders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Their values, got it.
We are gonna have to, we'll be 12 years in, we'll probably have to do some painting and some routine maintenance of other things and, the carpet's gonna have to be replaced at some point, so there's some stuff we're gonna have to spend money on in out years. We want the building to keep looking, respectable, so,
You're gonna get some heat for the conference room?
no.
I'm freezing here.
We shut it off automatically at 9 o'clock.
I'll try to get us to go home.
Yeah.
Again, every Dion's genius.
Yeah. It automatically goes off at 9, so.
Sometimes when I go by, when I'm running, I see you in the conference room at like 6:30 in the
Trying to-
morning.
Money
I gotta
never
get up.
sleeps.
I gotta get up early to beat him.
Yeah, he never sleeps.
I used to always see you at 7-Eleven at 6:30 in the morning. You still go there?
No, I stop at the Circle K now, I think, on the highway. I stop.
It's cheaper. It's nickel cheaper.
I appreciate that, Mark.
I hop off the highway, I
He
get my.
still gets his big
We're
up.
getting
my pickup,
It's like
and I
so
go to the
late.
post office and I make a big circle and I come.
Yeah.
Coast.
Our Jack Rabbit song.
Any more questions on the capital budget? No. Very well.
Wait, no.
Bunch of numbers tonight, right?
Yeah.
Just a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper.
How
Very
did the,
important.
How did the heat pump
how
go?
did the heat pump go?
This
Um,
informational session?
we had, probably our biggest turnout. We had probably 8 or 9 people, I
Yep.
think, yeah, besides staff, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
there was a lot of people who registered. I think Justin was saying there was at least 40 people who registered, but of those
Yeah.
40, it was probably like 7 people who, because nowadays people just wait for the recording and they watch it at their leisure. But it was nice. The 7 people who did come, or 8, 9, I think it was 9 actually,
Yeah,
asked some pretty good questions at the end. So
there was actually input,
yeah,
yeah,
there was
There was
engagement.
feedback, yeah.
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 Will you email the recording to all registrants?
yes, I think that
think we-
that email went out today. I talked to Justin, but I'll double check with him tomorrow to see.
It did. Aren't we gonna hang it out on the web or what are we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll-
we'll put it up on the website too.
Yeah.
Well,
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the CapEx and OpEx budget for FY 24.
Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Very well, so that completes the agenda. Is there any other item that anyone wishes to make to raise before we adjourn? Very well.
Right.
To adjourn,
10 o'clock, I'll make a motion to adjourn the November 1st meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Very well, thank you all very much. This was a very.
Hit it head on tonight. I said we were going till